Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
You could win cash and the ultimate holiday in our two-part Great British giveaway. Thanks to Riviera Travel, you could be jetting off on a £10,000 dream holiday for 2 people. With flights, transfers and luxury accommodation included, you'll get to choose the kind of holiday you want. Plus, we're going to give you £30,000 in tax-free cash.
For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB19 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 27th of February. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I ever got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akua, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, you didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
We love Great Britain. We love its history, its culture and its tradition, and that's why we're so proud to be part of GB News.
You look genuinely emotional. Oh, come here.
GB News does pay attention to those who are ignored by the mainstream media. The majority of this country whose forefathers fought and died to maintain liberty, to fight for freedom of speech.
The rule of law, the rights of property and democracy. This is the heritage that our country should be so proud of.
Which of course includes our Christian heritage. There's been a huge resurgence in the number of people going to church. Perhaps they're not finding what they're looking for, and they're looking for something a bit deeper, a bit more truthful, a bit more akin to Britain's Christian heritage.
That's right, get ready, because the most exciting night in general election history starts now!
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 12 o'clock on Thursday, the 12th of February. I'm Tom Harwood.
And I'm Sophie Reaper.
You can't have an economy with 9 million people on benefits and huge levels of immigrants coming in. I mean, the UK is being colonised.
Sir Jim Ratcliffe speaks out and the PM demands he apologises. Downing Street says the remarks risk dividing the country as the row grows between the Prime Minister and one of Britain's most high-profile business figures.
Elsewhere, the Chancellor promised growth, but the latest figures show the economy limped to the end of last year. So has Labour really got a plan to fire things up, or are the critics right to say that the strategy simply isn't there?
Yes, here in Sussex, the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, putting a brave face on those growth figures. I also asked her about her comments that a closer relationship with the European Union was the biggest prize. We'll bring you what she said in response shortly.
And Patrick Christie's heads to East Durham to hear directly from residents about the challenges facing the area.
Absolutely so much going on here in East Durham. We're going to be talking about immigration, social cohesion, crime. But on the very week that the government is celebrating National Apprentice Week, I'm afraid to say this factory behind me here is closing down with the loss of around 400 jobs. We are here to shine a light on one of Britain's many forgotten towns.
Meanwhile, Ed Miliband's net zero drive could trigger a financial crash. That's according to a former government scientific advisor who warns the cost of overhauling the entire grid risks sparking a fierce backlash from households and businesses.
And a new campaign launches this morning, encouraging farmers to break their silence on mental health.
Well, a very good afternoon to you. And Sophie, delight to have you here in the studio.
Stop. I always love getting to come on with you, Tom.
Yeah, no, it's because normally sort of you're down the line somewhere, either outside of a courtroom or...
wet, somewhere raining, somewhere windy, somewhere cold.
But that's enough about Manchester.
Well, the whole northwest, to be fair. Oh, there we go.
Oh, no, but we love it. This is going to be a big, big moment for the government. The growth figures for the end of last year are just out. And whilst it seems that, yes, 0.1% growth, a very, very low growth level. If you put that per capita, because there's been population growth at the same time, per capita, this is minus 0.1. And it's been like that for 2 consecutive quarters. The definition of a technical recession is 2 consecutive quarters of negative growth. So putting those 2 things together, we are in a per capita technical recession now.
That's quite scary as well. For anyone listening or watching at home, that is quite a scary word. I think, you know, it conjures up these images from years ago where the recession was a really, really scary time for homeowners, for businesses, for families. And just hearing you say that word when you came in this morning, I thought, scary times.
Yeah, well, what do you make of it? Send your views, post your comments. gbnews.com/your say is the way, as ever, to get involved. And remember, we'll be bringing you that interview with the Chancellor of the Exchequer in just a few minutes' time.
Indeed. But first, here's your news headlines with the fabulous Tatiana Sanchez.
Sophie, thank you very much. The top stories. The co-owner of Manchester United, Sir Jim Ratcliffe, has claimed the UK has been colonised by immigrants.
You can't afford, you can't have an economy with 9 million people on benefits and huge levels of immigrants coming in. I mean, the UK is being colonised. It's costing too much money. It will cause... It'll cause... Well, the UK is being colonised by immigrants, really, isn't it?
The billionaire called on politicians to show some courage by tackling immigration, welfare dependence and the weak economy. The Prime Minister responded to the comments, branding them as offensive and wrong, and has claimed for him to apologise. Manchester Mayor Andy Burnham has strongly criticised the comments too and says the remarks should be withdrawn. A 13-year-old boy has been charged with 2 counts of attempted murder after 2 boys were seriously injured in a stabbing at Kingsbury High School in Brent in northwest London. He's due to appear at Westminster Magistrates Court today, according to the Met Police. The boy had entered a first-floor classroom at Brent School at lunchtime on Tuesday, sprayed a substance at a pupil before stabbing a 13-year-old boy. As the suspect fled, he stabbed a 12-year-old in a corridor before running from the building. He was arrested just before 5 o'clock. He is still being questioned. The government has introduced a child knife crime plan following the double stabbing at that high school in Brent. Children caught carrying a knife by the police could be forced to have mentoring sessions as part of government plans to drive down reoffending. Police will refer every child knife possession case to youth justice services, and knife carriers could also be forced to stay in education or training under the plans. And finally, in other news today, the UK economy grew by 0.1% in the final quarter of last year. The ONS shows that economic growth also increased by 0.1% in December, with the ONS revising down November's figures from 0.3% to 0.2%. In response to those figures, the Chancellor says Labour has the right plan to build the UK economy. Those are the latest GB News headlines. More in half an hour.
Tune in to GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB Digital Radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player, on Nation Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 6 minutes past midday.
It is indeed. Now, co-owner of Manchester United, Sir Jim Ratcliffe, in some breaking news, has apologised for claiming the UK has been colonised by immigrants. Take a listen to what he said yesterday, first of all.
You can't have an economy with 9 million people on benefits and huge levels of immigrants coming in. I mean, the UK is being colonised. It's costing too much money. It will cause... It'll cause... Well, yeah. The UK is being colonised by immigrants, really, isn't it?
Well, in a statement released in the last couple of minutes, Sir Jim has said this: "I'm sorry that my choice of language has offended some people in the UK and Europe and caused concern, but it is important to raise the issue of controlled and well-managed immigration that supports economic growth." He continues, "My comments were made while answering questions about UK policy and at the European Industry Summit in Antwerp, where I was discussing the importance of economic growth, jobs, skills and manufacturing in the UK." He concludes with this: "My intention was to stress that governments must manage migration alongside investments in skills, industry and jobs so that long-term prosperity is shared by everyone. It's critical that we maintain an open debate on the challenges facing Britain."
Well, the FA is now reviewing Ratcliffe's remarks to see if there is a rule breach. It'll be interesting to see what they come back with their findings. But we're now joined by the founder of the Sanctuary Foundation, Krish Kandar. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. Now, it's been very divisive. There's some people saying, including the Prime Minister, that absolutely Sir Jim should be apologising, which he has now done. Some people saying, why should he be apologising? He's simply speaking the truth. First of all, I just want to get your stance on this.
Sure. Well, I've actually got a lot in common with Sir Jim. We both studied chemistry at university. We both were at the University of Birmingham, and we both support teams that wear red football shirts. I'm Liverpool. He's Manchester United. But look, I think those comments were really out of order. I'm so pleased to hear that he's stepping away from them. The question is whether they were a slip of the tongue or a slip of the mask. I mean, telling us that the UK has been colonised, that's really offensive language. I mean, if you go back, the UK had its own empire. Many wonderful things happened as a result of that. But some estimate about 50 million excess deaths happened because of the British Empire. So to say what's happening here as an invasion or a colonisation, that's not fair, that's not true.
I think those statistics would be mightily challenged by many historians, that more people died because of an empire that brought greater trade and investment. I mean, I would argue that places that used to be in the British Empire have higher populations than if they had never been part of it.
Well, we could go down that rabbit hole. This is a study done particularly on India, actually, which is where my mother is from. But look, the other thing that seems hypocritical, if you like, one is where Sir Jim lives. He lives in Monaco deliberately so he doesn't pay tax here. Now, choosing not to pay tax doesn't feel very patriotic, doesn't seem like someone who wants to see Britain flourish, because his tax money could be helping for some of those issues that he's saying we've got a problem with. Like, what about the challenges we've got with crumbling schools, with a lack of social housing? What about the cost of living? Surely his tax money could make a big difference. And then on top of that, you might rebrand Manchester United as Manchester Migrated. 75% of the first team are immigrants. I'd love to see him go into a half-time team talk and say, look, you ought to really not be here. You're part of the immigrant invasion that's colonising our country. I mean, do you want to say that to Eric Cantona and Dogu and Schmeichel? I mean, they are some of the absolute heroes of the United team.
His position, though?
Because not at all. He said immigrants are colonising our country.
Because clearly this is a matter of degree.
These are immigrants. Are you saying they're not?
Clearly, having a... I mean, what he's saying now in his clarifying statement, I'll note he says, I'm sorry my choice of language has offended some people. Not the sentiment. The sentiment is migration has been far too high. It's perfectly legitimate to say that migration should have been lower, more controlled. You could indeed select for skills, select for amazing footballers.
Even Andy Burnham has said that there's a difference between talking about immigration and whether the numbers are too high, and then using words like colonisation, which is a very aggressive term. So I'm open for a grown-up conversation, but he didn't distinguish. He didn't say some immigrants. He said immigrants are colonising our country, and that would include the first team of Manchester United.
What's really interesting is what you said at the beginning is this a slip of the tongue or a slip of the mask? Because I think, just to play devil's advocate, you know, whether you think immigration is bad or if you think immigration is good, wherever you stand on the spectrum on immigration, you can't deny that immigration itself has changed the makeup of the UK. And you could argue that he's using that term colonisation there in the sense that, you know, immigrants bring their culture, they bring their ways of life. And you can't argue that that isn't the case, that that hasn't happened in modern Britain, that, you know, colonies from different countries have changed various aspects and they have brought their ways of life into it.
Sure. Look, take the Manchester United first team or even the Liverpool first team. I think we are so grateful that immigrants bring their skills and gifts and they make a huge contribution to our culture. I think that's true for my football team. I think it's true in my local community. I love the fact that I've got Iranian neighbours. I love the fact she brings me food regularly from her country. I love the fact that we've got tea from India because we've got Indian immigrants here. So, you know, immigration is not all about resource extraction, which is what the word colonisation tends to kind of put in your mind. They're bringing value. They're helping our NHS to run. Without it, we'd be completely crippled. We'd have even longer waiting lists if it wasn't for an immigrant population. So, again, once you frame it in negative language like colonisation, I think it just puts everyone's hackles up.
Well, I mean, ultimately, the word colonisation, I suppose, is a contested one by lots of different people. And, it means
and I think that's probably why he has apologised, because of that word.
Exactly, that particular word. I mean, some colonisation was extractive, some was inclusive. I mean, some was building up institutions in areas that didn't have many people living there at all. I mean, and others, I mean, particularly South American, was the most brutal kind of extractive colonisation you could possibly have. I mean, is it ever a legitimate comparison to make?
I'm not sure about that. I mean, the word, as you say, it is contested. There is a terrible history associated. I mean, you mentioned South America. Millions and millions of people were either accidentally killed by diseases being spread or deliberately killed as civilizations were wiped out to extract. So it's a bizarre word to use unintentionally. I mean, the bigger question for me is, like, here is someone who says he's a patriot, he cares about the United Kingdom. Why is he not paying tax here? Surely we must all agree that if you're one of the richest people in British history, you own one of our premier football clubs, you'd want to be paying tax
But, I
here.
mean, you mentioned that if you were paying tax here, it could be going to helping things like potholes and schools. But actually, I mean, look at the budgets. Look at what's changed in the last 5 or so years. I mean, if he was spending £1 billion in tax in this country, it might just be paying for some migrant hotels.
Migrant hotels are definitely a waste of money. I've got better solutions, like let people work, let people not have to live in hotels. But the biggest amount of budget goes to the NHS. Our NHS is struggling, and his tax money would really help with it.
I mean, arguably, the NHS has had I think it is 25% spending increase in the last decade. It
and it needs it
more than that.
With the waiting list they've currently got.
We have been pouring tens of billions of extra pounds into the NHS. The budget has ballooned. It's the results that aren't quite getting better. I mean, again, we're going on to a tangent, but I mean,
as we so often do.
But you could argue that he thinks that money is being badly spent in this country.
Well, pay your tax
he has
and
no
then have your say.
obligation to base his life in this country.
I think patriotic Brits pay their dues. We're not sponges and scroungers. We are people who pay up, and one thing we do is we pay our tax to make sure everybody can thrive.
I can certainly attest to that. Thanks so much for joining us this afternoon. Very interesting.
Absolutely. Krish Kandir, founder of the Sanctuary Foundation. Now, let's move on to the economy, because new figures from the Office for National Statistics show the UK economy grew by just 0.1% in the final quarter of last year.
Whilst Rachel Reeves was quick to celebrate the GDP figures, positioning the UK as the fastest-growing G7 in Europe, laughter there, Tom,
yep.
Kemi Badenoch criticised the overall subdued growth, adding that Britain is stuck in the slow lane.
Well, let's speak to our political correspondent Catherine Forster, who actually sat down with the Chancellor a short while ago.
Chancellor, people need to feel that things are getting better, but GDP per head has fallen for the back half of last year. When Wes Streeting says you've got no growth strategy at all, he has a point, doesn't he? And also, if I may, you've said that closer alignment with the EU is the biggest prize. What do you say to people who think that you're just reversing Brexit bit by bit?
Well, first on economic growth, Wes Streeting was clear yesterday that one of the mistakes in his messages to Peter Mandelson was that we had no economic plan, because the numbers today show that the economy grew by 1.3% last year, a higher growth than the year before, and GDP per capita increased by 1% last year after falling in 5 years under the previous government. So we are growing our economy, we're bringing down the cost of living, £150 off of people's energy bills from April, freezing prescription charges and train fares, continuing with the bus fare cap, all of those putting the money in the pockets of ordinary working people, so they've got more money to spend in their high streets, in their local area. And in terms of our relations with the EU, over the last year and a half, we've done trade deals with the US, with India, with the Republic of Korea, and all of that will create new trading opportunities for British businesses overseas. And those trade deals have been opposed by the Conservatives, and they've been opposed by Reform. And that is a mistake, because our growth will come from giving more opportunities for British businesses to sell what they produce all around the world. But half of our exports go to countries within the European Union, and the botched Brexit deal has meant that it is now more expensive to sell what we make in Britain into France and Germany and Poland and Denmark. That makes no sense at all. And so we do want to bring down those barriers so that things that are made in Britain can be sold in the European Union, creating growth, creating productivity, and crucially, creating jobs, including for young people here in Britain.
Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine.
Well, joining us now is our chief political correspondent, Catherine Forster. Catherine, what did you make of what the Chancellor had to say?
Well, she's putting a very positive spin on those GDP figures, isn't she? Of course she would. But the fact of the matter is that the growth came pretty much mostly at the beginning of the year, 0.1% for the last 2 quarters. And I think very significantly the fact that GDP per head, which is really what's important for people in terms of feeling better off, has been down 2 quarters in a row. So technically that's a per capita recession. And also, I think what's interesting is the fact that Wes Streeting, one of the cabinet, the health secretary, his words to Peter Mandelson saying the government had no growth strategy are now being used to, as ammunition against the government. And I think it just shows the sort of level of chaos that we've had this week. Of course, the Prime Minister has made it through. We're now going into recess. They will hope that things will calm down. But for how long? And of course, although the bond markets are pretty happy with Rachel Reeves and the Prime Minister, if somebody else came in, Ed Miliband, perhaps Angela Rayner, that might be a whole different kettle of fish. And on the EU, the government is so clear keen to have a closer relationship. But what will the cost be for that? We know that the EU always drive a very, very hard bargain on everything. We are not just going to be allowed to have our cake and eat it. And also, all those trade deals that she mentioned that we've done with India and with many other countries, at what point do those two things, the wish for a closer relationship with the EU and the trade deals that we've already done, start to come into conflict? So the Chancellor here announcing another £5 billion that BT are investing in broadband. trying to sound positive. But look, you know, we were promised growth. OK, we're getting a little bit of growth, but it's not enough, is it, to really shift the dial?
Well, GB News Chief Political Correspondent Catherine Foster, thank you so much for joining us. And now joining us down the line is Director of International Monetary Research at the University of Birmingham, Ewan Stewart. Ewan, thanks for joining us this afternoon. Look, I just want to start with a question that I'm sure a lot of people at home are asking themselves this afternoon. That is, you know, it's 1.3% the economy grew overall last year. All right, it was 1.1 the year before, but so that, I suppose, is a slight improvement. But 1.3% just seems so measly. You know, is that the case in relative terms, or is it, you know, is it quite something?
Well, 1.3% is putting a very positive spin on it. That may have happened over the last 12 months, but actually, as the population's been increasing a lot, partly as a result of migration, the per head growth is a lot less than that. It's derisory. But not only that, the chickens are coming home to roost, because virtually all of that growth happened 12 months ago. The last 3 quarters have shown hardly any growth at all. If Rachel Reeves is cheering about 0.1%, God help us, frankly. It really is extremely poor. And interestingly, if we look what's actually happening in the United States of America, the American economy grew over 4% this year. I don't hear her having many nice words to say about what's going on in the States. So wealthy countries can perform well. This is a self-inflicted problem, in my view.
And Ewan, a lot of people think about the term economic growth and sort of question how it relates to them. But could you just paint a picture for us? I mean, say the UK continues to grow at 1%, maybe a little bit less, and the United States continues to grow at 4%. I mean, that growth does a thing called compounding. I mean, within a decade or two, that is a really significant wealth gap that grows and grows and grows over time. Can you sort of explain how that works?
Yeah, well, very easily. If we go back to when Tony Blair became Prime Minister in 1997, let's take it to the start of the millennium, just to keep the numbers simple. British families were about $5,000 a head poorer than the average American family. So pretty close. There wasn't much difference, actually. You could go to America, have a good time. It wasn't going to cost you much more. Today, that gap is about $25,000. That's happened in a short generation. And, you know, your viewers, if they go to the States, will probably have noticed just how expensive it is. And that is why. America has been generally growing at 2 or 3 or more % per annum, the same with Australia, the same with Canada. We have been growing hardly at all. And actually, the European Union's done even worse. The quite white Rachel Reeves wants to hitch her skirt to them, I'm not entirely sure. But just taking that point aside, growth really matters. It doesn't matter over a year, I get that, and I get there's a volatility about it, but there's a reason that Britain isn't growing and hasn't been growing for a long time, and it is a matter of policy choice. And I think the main reasons are that we have chosen to de-emphasize the private sector and invest very, very heavily in the public sector. Productivity in the public sector is generally extremely low. It's resulted in very high tax, very high public debt, and that has slowly but surely squeezed the life out of the economy.
OK, well, Ewan Stewart, the Director of International Monetary Research at the University of Buckingham, thanks indeed for explaining all of that for us. Really appreciate your time.
My pleasure, thank you.
Indeed. Now, we've got some breaking news for you this afternoon. Former Arsenal player Thomas Partey has been charged with further counts of rape against a 4th woman.
Well, the Ghanaian international, 32, is currently facing trial after denying raping 2 women and sexually assaulting a 3rd. So, just to repeat, that's the former Arsenal player Thomas Partey being charged with further counts of rape against a 4th woman now.
Indeed, we'll be bringing you more on that as we get it. But for now, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Lots more coming up on today's show.
Yes, a former government advisor warns the push to net zero could spark an economic crash as fears grow over soaring energy costs. But after the break...
Patrick Christie's is on the ground in East Durham, hearing from locals about crime, jobs and whether promises of regeneration will deliver.
All of that and much more to come. You're with GB News, Britain's #1 news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
We were looking earlier at the coin that the Australian Mint have minted, a commemorative coin of the late Queen Elizabeth. Everybody is noting that even though it's selling apparently like hot cross buns for $100, it doesn't look like her at all. I think we've got the picture and we can show you. But
I can see
one of our viewers, lovely viewers, has texted in already and said, she looks like Hyacinth Bouquet.
Yeah.
She does, doesn't she?
She does a little bit.
She doesn't look like the Queen.
I mean, I can see how it is the Queen, but it's because it's face on, and it's you don't get the sort of depth of it in a way. So she just looks rounder, flatter.
Yes, I'd say that.
Whereas
Yeah.
I'd say so.
It's not a coin that's going to be used as money. What do you call it? It's not
legal tender.
Legal tender.
Oh, is it not legal
No,
tender?
it's just a commemorative coin. So I suppose instead of doing it the traditional way of just a profile pic, they've gone for something a bit, well, more personality, a bit warmer.
They've given her a funny grin as well.
Very odd mouth.
Didn't coins used to like that used to be legal tender though?
They can be. It depends where you get them.
Right.
Depends. I mean, because sometimes they do ones that are minted in Jersey and things that you get over here, which you can't spend. But some of them you can. I mean, if you get the commemorative coins over here from the Royal Mint, then you can technically spend them, but people aren't obliged to take them.
I've been to a branch of the Royal Mint.
Have you? Did you nick anything?
No, of course I didn't.
I would have done.
Well, Piers Pottinger is with us actually here in the studio as well, and he's just sort of said, actually, it looks a bit more like Les Dawson.
Yep. GB News, the People's Channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 27 minutes past midday. Now, today, GB News' very own Patrick Christys is in East Durham, where he's speaking to members of the community about the challenges they face.
Yes, the area consists of higher crime rates and people on universal credit compared to the rest of England.
Though we're currently looking at pictures of the beautiful central Durham, where I used to live. Now, 21% have no qualifications in East Durham, and there are just over 180 crimes per 1,000 people.
Well, Patrick joins us live now from East Durham, and he's joined by engineer and lecturer at Hartlepool Further Education College, Abby Dent. Patrick, take it away.
Absolutely. Look, welcome to East Durham. This is a place that's been described as a forgotten town, not forgotten by us here at GB News. And what you'll see behind me there is a factory, NSK. Now, they make bearings. Anything with moving parts needs the bearings that come out of this factory here. However, it is set to close, and it is a sorry tale of Britain's industrial decline. I was just listening to your piece there about the economy. What's one of the reasons why we have slow growth? We don't make anything anymore, and it's having a devastating knock-on effect to the area. And I am joined now by the wonderful Abby Dent. Abby, thank you so much. Look, I know that you are really steeped in this local area. What would it mean, do you think, if this factory closes? About 400 people, I think, could be set to lose their job.
It's another skilled workforce being chased out of jobs. It's robbing young people of opportunities who are coming out of college, university, where they're supposed to go.
Yeah, and it's actually National Apprentice Week, apparently, here. And, you know, when you think about the consequences of this place closing, do you feel like this area has been a bit forgotten by politicians? Could they be doing more, do you think?
Oh, absolutely. I feel like the government are just running the place into the ground. Someone should be up here looking at businesses such as NSK. How can we keep them here? How can we make it easier, give them incentives, or even to attract other businesses to come here? I just feel like they don't care.
And people are ready to work. People want to work. This is it. You've got a workforce here and trainees coming through that just need somewhere to go. And now, some statistics I was looking at before I came here today. There's a town just down the road with a healthy life expectancy of just 51 years old. You've got half of that town in work. The other half are on benefits. And you look at that and you think part of that surely is about giving people an opportunity, believing in people, really. And you know, what do you like the government to be doing or saying, do you think? What could they do to help out here, do you think?
The government should be looking at places such as County Durham and across the country, looking after its own people, attracting businesses to come here, not chasing them away, and then looking elsewhere. That's the last thing we want. Then there's going to be more people on benefits, out of work. Young people need businesses such as NSK on the doorstep to attract them, to make them want to do better. But at the minute, it's going the opposite way.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, this is something that we're going to be covering so much here today. There's loads of different stories all wrapped up into one when it comes to where we are in East Durham. I'm going to be doing my show live from a good old British boozer, 9 to 11 p.m. But there's a lot to talk about. Issues with immigration, issues, you know, when it comes to social cohesion, issues, of course, when it comes to employment and unemployment. And we're going to be talking about all of those things. So make sure that you stay tuned here to GB News with me out in East Durham. Back to you in the studio.
So important, Patrick. Thanks for being there for us. This is what GB News is all about. We'll be sure to tune in later today.
Absolutely. And thanks to your guest, Abby, as well. Wonderful to hear from real local people, and that's the point of Patrick being there, of course. Now, we can go live now to Downing Street, where GB News' political editor, Christopher Hope, has just left a briefing with the Prime Minister's spokesman. Chris, what can you tell us? What's been said?
So during that briefing with the PM spokesman just now, we heard that the Jim Ratcliffe, the co-owner of Manchester United, had apologised. He says this: "I'm sorry for these remarks," talking about the colonisation of the UK from mass immigration. He says, "I'm sorry that my choice of language has offended some people in the UK and Europe." He adds, "It's important to raise the issue of controlled and well-managed immigration that supports economic growth. My intention was to stress that governments must manage migration alongside investment in skills, industry and jobs so that long-term prosperity is shared by everyone. It's critical that we maintain an open debate on the challenges facing the UK." Now, given we were talking about this with the PM spokesman just now, Number 10, of course, welcomed those remarks. The PM asked for an apology, his spokesman says, and it's now been issued, suggesting that the case has been closed. Before that apology was issued, the PM spokesman said that the UK is a proud and diverse country, that Jim Ratcliffe's comments were inflammatory, divisive, inaccurate and wrong, and they have caused offence to a large number of people, we were told by Number 10. There's nothing wrong about having a serious debate about immigration, but the system hasn't been working as it should. And they called out Sir Jim Ratcliffe for suggesting the population had gone up by 12 million since 2020. In fact, it's gone up by that level since 2000. So there's a clear attempt here to draw the line under what Sir Jim Ratcliffe said. Also in the briefing just now, the spokesman was challenged by the remarks in today's Guardian newspaper from Lisa Nandy, who's a culture secretary. She said that the performance by the government had been unforgivable. She also said the system was rigged for a reason against people in all parts of the country. Now, there's quite a surprising attack by the culture secretary, someone who has stood for leadership before, to lead the Labour Party. Number 10 says that there are millions of people who don't get the opportunities they deserve. They're held back by a system that doesn't work for them, and the PM agrees with that, and he's fighting for millions of people to get the opportunities they deserve. Number 10 said it's personal for the PM. He has seen his late brother wandering around from job to job, failing to get on. So the PM is rowing behind what Lisa Nandy has said there, although not saying Number 10 not saying that he supports all of the remarks, but certainly the gist of it and how this country isn't working for them. So 18 months in, you've got a cabinet minister here attacking the government's record, and the PM agreeing that not enough has been done. Elsewhere, the PM spokesman was optimistic about growth. Now, they say here that growth's gone up from 0.3% in 2023 to 1.3% now. We're moving in the right direction, the government says. This is the year the UK turns a corner. Despite the fact that growth per capita is down, there's more to do, we're told, on that. And the issue of Chris Wormald, the man you've never heard of, doesn't matter that, but he's the most senior cabinet person in the Cabinet Office. He's the most senior civil servant in the country. As of the briefing just now with the government, they couldn't tell us that he is still in post. They couldn't tell us that he's still the Cabinet Secretary, but the Cabinet Office is being supervised, we're told, by someone in that role. So confusion about Chris Wormald, the most senior official in Whitehall.
Sorry, Christopher, just to make sense of that for a second. The Prime Minister, of course, lost his Chief of Staff, his Director of Communications, but now we don't know if he's lost his Cabinet Secretary as well. This would be the third major departure of Downing Street in just 5 days. But currently it sounds like it's sort of Schrodinger's Cabinet Secretary. He's sort of there and not there at the same time. What on earth is going on? It's chaotic.
That's quite an accurate summary, Tom, of where we are. The Number 10 couldn't say that Chris Wormald is the Cabinet Secretary because it's been widely reported he's being eased out of that job. There could be some announcement later today or in coming days. Antonia Romeo, who is a Permanent Secretary, has previously gone for that job. She may get it. Again, I mean, viewers and listeners will be scratching their heads about these names. They are important people who run the country. Of course, the elected politicians are in charge. These are the officialdom level. We don't know if he's in charge at the moment. We are told the Cabinet Office is being supervised by the Cabinet Secretary, but they can't tell us who the Cabinet Secretary is, or at least if that person is in post.
I mean, it's ridiculous,
chaos, isn't it?
It was supposed to be a proper... We've got nuclear weapons, Chris Hope. We've got nuclear weapons. We don't know who our blooming Cabinet Secretary is. Oh, my goodness me. Well, we'll catch up with you a little bit later in the programme. Thanks indeed for joining us.
And who thought there'd be a reference to Schrodinger on today's Good Afternoon Britain? I bet you weren't betting on that at home. Lots more to come on today's show. A former government advisor warns the push for net zero could spark an economic crash as fears grow over soaring energy costs.
Well, all of that and indeed more to come. You're with GB News, Britain's #1 news channel.
Hello, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Cold air sitting across the north. Another wet day for many, but some bright spells across parts of the south where it is, at least for the time being, still relatively mild. Low pressure systems sitting across the UK, generating quite a bit of rain, and increasingly as the cold air moves in, we'll see a bit more snow coming in. Some brighter skies over northern Scotland, some snow showers in Shetland. Further south, we've got some rain showers. Some brighter spells now developing over southwest England and South Wales, but most areas cloudy with further rain and drizzle and some hill snow over parts of central and southern Scotland. Temperatures really struggling in parts of the east with that brisk wind coming in from the North Sea. And as that colder air moves in, we will see more and more of the rain turning to snow. Some snow flurries likely across northeastern parts of Scotland. Could well turn icy as temperatures drop through the night as well. Of course, southern Scotland, northern England, will higher routes likely to be affected as we go through the night and into tomorrow. Further south, more of a mishmash with rain showers and some clearer spells. But as I say, as we go through the night, a bit concerned about parts of the North Pennines, particularly to the east, where we'll see the snow really building up in some areas. Again, particularly over the hills. We could see some even down to lower levels for a time, as the whole wet weather sinks south over northern England, even into parts of North Wales. Some hill snow likely here. And things turning colder and colder with a widespread frost across Scotland. That could lead to some icy conditions wherever we've seen any showers around. Friday is then a real mishmash with rain, sleet, snow over northern England and North Wales, moving down into the Midlands. Something a bit brighter in the south initially, but then more showers. A bright, fine day for a good part of Scotland and Northern Ireland, although it could be icy first thing. And temperatures only 3 or 4 degrees, still a little milder in the far south.
Thank you, Britain, for making GB News Radio such a huge success. Whether you're in the car, on the go, or listening at home, thank you for choosing us as your radio station.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. On the A9 northbound after green loaning, traffic is restricted following a road traffic collision. On the M18 southbound exit slip at Junction 2, a broken down vehicle is closing one of 2 lanes, with delays expected until around 1 this afternoon. Also on the M6 northbound between Junction 6 and Junction 7, another broken down vehicle is slowing traffic, clearing by just after 1:10 this afternoon. And on the trains, the Elizabeth line has no services to or from Heathrow Terminal 4, while Great Western Railway reports disruption on multiple routes. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's now 20 minutes to 1.
Well, we are talking about net zero, of course, because there's been this report out, hasn't there, Tom, about Ed Miliband and the net zero drive, and about how it could trigger a financial crash costing £1.4 trillion over 30 years.
Yes, that's the warning of the former government scientific advisor, Michael Kelly. It comes as predictions suggest that electricity prices could be even higher in 2030 than during the height of the Ukraine energy crisis.
Well, we're delighted to be joined now by Michael Kelly himself, Professor of Technology at the University of Cambridge. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. It's scary reading, that, isn't it? And I know for myself, my electric has gone through the roof. I'm sure many of our lovely viewers and listeners will be thinking exactly the same. So, is this a case of things getting worse before they get better, or is this just a gradual decline into chaos?
No, I'm not sure I would put it as either of those. Oh. But I think the issue that keeps coming up is that as we go from one system to another, there's a lot of fragility in both cases. And at the moment, the government promise is to take costs out of energy bills by 2030, and yet at the same time they're investing huge sums of money in the infrastructure. Well, if I invest something of my money into a venture, I hope to get some money back. And so the government will expect to get money back, and so will the people working in the various component industries. And the way they get their money back is either selling more at the same price or selling the same at higher prices. And since we've had a gradual diminution of electricity use in homes, for example, but, over the last 20 years, which of course is counterintuitive, but we've had more energy efficiency, the prices have gone up, so people have used less. But if we're going to get from there to where we want to be in 2050, which is where I see all the problems, the 1.4 trillion, I told, is my professional estimate of what it will cost to deliver a net zero electricity grid.
And the government doesn't recognise that number, or at least it doesn't admit that it's going to cost this. Why the gap?
Well, I've had a letter from, a reply to my letter to Ed Miliband on this, saying we do not recognise your numbers. Now, it's 8 years since we signed the Net Zero Act. And there's a biblical quote I love to say from the Gospel of St. Luke, and it goes like this. Suppose one of you wants to build a tower. Wouldn't you go home first and check that you have the money to complete the tower? Otherwise, you'll build the foundations, run out of money, and you'll be a source of constant derision in your community. Well, this is exactly the point. Nobody's telling us how much money it will cost. And my estimate just for the grid is 1.4 trillion.
Wow. Well, you mentioned Ed Miliband there. He was in the House of Commons yesterday talking about the net zero plans and how they were giving £1 billion to encourage communities to invest in their own energy, for communities to own their own energy. And he gave several examples, and he talked about how important that is, and yada, yada, yada. He waxed lyrical about his plans, essentially. But then when you contrast that with your professional estimate of 1.4 trillion just for the national grid, your point is completely valid about, you know, 1 billion for communities on one hand, they giveth with one hand, and they taketh 1.4 trillion with the other.
This 1.4 trillion, it's important to note that almost nobody talks about the distribution of electricity. We tend to talk about the generation and the transmission. But half the cost of the whole energy infrastructure is from the local transmission line down every street into every house. Now, at the moment, most houses have a 60-amp fuse. meaning if you use more than 60 amps, it trips out and you have to trip it back. But a ground source heat pump, when it's turning on, uses 58 amps, and a fast charger uses 33 amps, and a normal induction hob, when everything's going red, is using 28 amps. So we're going to get to a case where, unless we upgrade the wiring in every house along every street and then upgrade the transformers, nothing's going to happen. And there's a 3-year waiting list for grid-sized transformers globally.
This is the kind of technical detail that is so missing from the net zero debate.
Absolutely.
Because very often you'll have a politician on here saying, oh, it's fine, let's just build some wind turbines and stick up some solar panels. But instead, they forget all of the transmission costs, changing the entire wiring of streets, houses, cities, you name it. Ironically, there was a Green MP who won their seat in Suffolk at the last election. And this Green MP mainly won their seat off the back of a campaign against new pylons in the area, which people thought, we'll vote for the Greens because we'll stop the pylons. Do you know why the pylons were being built? Because of the wind turbines that needed new pylons. We've got a ridiculous situation where Green MPs are winning seats on anti-wind farm campaigns.
Look, this whole project of net zero is one of the greatest transformations of civil society. And the fact that it's been doing on the sort of the back of a fag packet, I put my data in the public domain 3 years ago, and I've had from the government and from a couple of other organisations, including the National Grid, we do not recognise these numbers, but they don't have their alternative numbers. And if I could be taken down systematically and shown that I've overestimated everything by a factor of 10 and it will all be all right, this country will be better off. Now, either I'm right, in which case we better do something, or I'm wrong, but show me I'm wrong.
But they're not actually contradicting you, they're just saying...
They're just avoiding the debate. It's a very sad state of affairs.
Dear me.
Well, Michael Kelly, thanks indeed for coming in and explaining all of that. It's a, as you say, sad state of affairs and pretty worrying one at that.
Absolutely. Now, we've reached out to the Department for Energy Security and Net Zero, and we'll be bringing you their response when we get that a little bit later on.
But this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News, and there's lots more still to come.
Indeed. Fury from the hospitality industry over plans for a new holiday tax, with businesses warning families could end up paying far more for a UK break.
But first, if you're sick of waiting for things to warm up here due to climate change, maybe you'd like to fly off somewhere a little warmer. Here's the travel weather.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Whilst it's perhaps not as unsettled as it was this time last week across much of southern Europe, there's heavy rain, there's strong winds to watch out for. Lots of wet weather across Spain and Portugal through tomorrow and across southern parts of France. Some hill snow mixed in with this. Tomorrow actually looks largely dry across much of Italy, but that wet weather will feed its way eastwards, and currently across Greece and Cyprus there's heavy thundery rain around, and some of that will continue as we go into the weekend. Elsewhere, some dry weather for many.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country. There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor. Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Bold. They are under no illusion. Ray. Are you a human trafficker? Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get us on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline.
Should we be worried about it? From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What we're going to do now is they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akua, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave. I'm so surprised. I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's just gone 10 to 1. Now, UK Hospitality is launching a campaign to stop the holiday tax as ministers consult on plans to introduce a new visitor levy.
Indeed, if approved, mayors and councils would be able to add an extra charge to every night in paid accommodation, from hotels and B&Bs to holiday parks and Airbnbs.
Well, let's go and speak to our very own reporter Anna Riley at Haven Primrose Valley Holiday Park. Anna.
Good afternoon, Tom and Sophie, yes, and welcome to the great British weather here at Haven Holiday Park, Primrose Valley in Filey. I'm joined by Haven CEO Simon Palethorpe. Simon, you're one of the 200 signatories in this petition to the government to say stop the holiday tax. Why is that?
This holiday tax is a bad idea, full stop. This holiday tax hits the British families hardest at a very time when they can't afford it. We can see just by their behaviours and their spending patterns on our parks today, and I think it's across all of hospitality, that people are feeling hard pressed. And so to bring a tax on top of the VAT, which they're already paying on their accommodation on their holidays, just doesn't seem fair.
And how would this stop maybe people holidaying in the UK if they say, well, it's cheaper to go abroad?
Well, I think what will happen is that people will take fewer breaks, they'll take shorter breaks in the UK. And remember, when you go abroad, in most countries in Europe, you pay actually a lower VAT rate of around 10% on holidays versus us charging people 20% in the UK. So we're actually incentivising people to go abroad in essence.
And what would be the impact on the economies, you know, like in Filey and all the other 36 Haven holiday parks around the UK?
We've got holiday parks all around the UK, and hospitality in general employs 3 million people. So the impact will be not just on the holiday parks like us, it's going to be on the taxis, on the accommodation providers, it's going to be on restaurants, it's going to be on attractions. And so the net result is that if people are coming on holiday less, or if they're going abroad, there'll be fewer people employed, there'll be less investment and less money, frankly, being drawn into those locations.
So what would your message to the government be?
Well, we're in the middle of a consultation. We've put all of our views through to the government, along with 200 other hospitality providers, to say, please reconsider, please don't put this holiday tax in place. It doesn't make economic sense, and it's going to hurt the very people you're trying to help.
Thank you, Simon. Thank you for having us here at GB News at Haven Holiday Park in Primrose Valley. That's Simon's views there on the impact that this holiday tax could have on the hospitality industry.
Well, Anna, thanks indeed for being there for us. It seems like a big concern for hospitality up and down the country.
And they're absolutely right. Why would you stay in this country if you could go abroad for even cheaper? And, you know, you get the weather, you get that experience of going to a foreign land.
Yeah, although some people love the rain. Well, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Lots more still to come on the programme, so don't move a muscle. But first, let's check in and see if it's raining where you are.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Cold air sitting across the north. Another wet day for many, but some bright spells across parts of the south where it is, at least for the time being, still relatively mild. Low pressure systems sitting across the UK, generating quite a bit of rain, and increasingly as the cold air moves in, we'll see a bit more snow coming in. Some brighter skies over northern Scotland, some snow showers in Shetland. Further south, we've got some rain showers, some brighter spells now developing over southwest England and South Wales, but most areas cloudy with further rain and drizzle and some hill snow over parts of central and southern Scotland. Temperatures really struggling in parts of the east with that brisk wind coming in from the North Sea. And as that colder air moves in, we will see more and more of the rain turning to snow. Some snow flurries likely across northeastern parts of Scotland. Could well turn icy as temperatures drop through the night as well. Across southern Scotland, northern England, we'll see over the hills more and more snow coming in here. Higher routes likely to be affected as we go through the night and into tomorrow. Further south, more of a mishmash with rain showers and some clearer spells. But as I say, as we go through the night, a bit concerned about parts of the North Pennines, particularly to the east, where we'll see the snow really building up in some areas. Again, particularly over the hills. We could see some even down to lower levels for a time as the wet weather sinks south over northern England, even into parts of North Wales. Some hill snow likely here. And things turning colder and colder with a widespread frost across Scotland. That could lead to some icy conditions wherever we've seen any showers around. Friday is then a real mishmash with rain, sleet, snow over northern England and North Wales, moving down into the Midlands. Something a bit brighter in the south initially, but then more showers. A bright, fine day for a good part of Scotland and Northern Ireland, although it could be icy first thing. And temperatures only 3 or 4 degrees, still a little milder in the far south.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
We want you to boost your bank account with an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. There's also a terrific £10,000 to spend on a Riviera travel holiday of a lifetime for two. So whether you fancy a cruise or an escorted tour, you'll have over 30 worldwide destinations to choose from.
For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB19, PO Box 8690, Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 27th of February. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
He's Alex Young, 46. He lost his right leg below the knee only last year after a very old football injury caused a bone infection. And you now chose, didn't you, Alex, to actually have it amputated in the end because it was such pain.
Yeah, it was the best option for what I needed. 4.5 years of pain, and just needed it gone.
Yeah, but under those circumstances then, aren't you provided with... I mean, people would assume that you're provided with all the kit you need.
You are. You are given a leg from the NHS, and depending on how active you want to be, they're limited on what they can do. I wanted to do a 5K run for the Dorset County Hospital in Dorchester, and they can't provide me with a running leg. So they can't provide me with a blade, so the best option was to wait a year, which I didn't want to do, and I wanted to do the run in July. And so I thought best option, make my own.
Now, as if you hadn't got enough to cope with, going through an amputation, losing your leg, learning how to walk on one, because you have an engineering background, you saw this as a bit of a challenge.
Yeah, and it keeps my mind active, because you could be sat recovering for 6 months, and I'd already done a year's recovery from an older injury where I lost a toe. That's the one I made from bits from eBay,
Let's have a
Amazon.
closer look at it. Yeah, right. So they are all bits of proper professional
They're
legs,
proper
aren't they?
prosthesis parts.
This is the important bit you wanted for the running.
Yeah, that's the springback foot, so that's a bit of an active...
That looks almost like it's carbon fibre.
It is carbon fibre, yeah. And there's different categories and weight class, so depending on how heavy you are.
Yeah.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 1 o'clock on Thursday, the 12th of February. I'm Sophie Reaper.
And I'm Tom Harwood.
You can't have an economy with 9 million people on benefits and huge levels of immigrants coming in. I mean, the UK is being colonised.
Well, now Sir Jim Ratcliffe has apologised after claiming Britain had been colonised by immigrants. The Manchester United co-owner said he regretted the offence that was caused by his choice of language after the Prime Minister demanded he say sorry.
Number 10 says the PM asked for an apology and it's now been issued. Has a line been drawn under this row about Sir Jim Ratcliffe's comments?
The Chancellor promised growth, but the latest figures show the economy limped through the end of last year. So, has Labour really got a plan to fire things up, or are critics right to say the strategy just isn't there?
Meanwhile, Patrick Christys heads to East Durham to hear directly from residents about the challenges facing their area.
Yes, this is not a film set. This is 5th Street in Durham. And look at it. Once the beating heart of the British workforce of Britain's industry, now all boarded up. And get this, what do you notice? It's not a real door. It's not a real window. What's going on here? How did it happen? And how do we sort it out?
Elsewhere, Sir Keir Starmer is under fire from senior women in Labour over his decision to elevate Matthew Doyle to the Lords amid claims of a boys' club culture in Number 10. Does Labour have a woman problem at the top of government?
And a new campaign launches this morning, or indeed encouraging farmers to break their silence on mental health.
Well, that campaign now more important than ever as new figures suggest that mental health amongst farmers is at a 4-year low. This afternoon, I'm on a farm in Essex, finding out what's causing this mental health emergency.
Well, a portentous day, but when is it not with this Prime Minister who seems to be clinging on to his job by a thread? Disappointing growth numbers, accusations of a boys' club in Number 10.
Bit of a battering at PMQs yesterday from his opposition.
It just doesn't seem like things are going particularly well for the Prime Minister at the moment, although he has managed to force Sir Jim Ratcliffe into a semi-apology, so there's that.
Which in itself has been seen as controversial, so there we go. It's just still not ideal for Sir Keir Starmer, is it? But there we are.
It's, once you're onto a losing streak, it's like you really can't win. It's, there was a time when sort of Rishi Sunak had some wins as Prime Minister, but everyone had just decided that he was a dud.
Yeah.
And so when you're a dud, even if you do good things, they're seen through the dud prism.
You only get one chance at a first impression, they say, don't they?
And yet, when Keir Starmer was in opposition, there were lots of mistakes that he made, but everyone had decided he was the next Prime Minister, so it's viewed through the prism of rose-tinted glasses. And so it's strange how sort of perception can change the way that people look at various facts. Yeah.
It's a complex beast, politics. That's why I try to stay clear. Well, we want your views and comments on all the stories of the day. You can do that by visiting gbnews.com/your-say.
Indeed, or you could scan the QR code on your screens right now, which is very exciting and newfangled. But before we get on to all of the above, let's get the very latest news headlines with Tatiana.
Tom, thank you. The top stories. Manchester United co-owner Sir Jim Ratcliffe has apologised over his claims that immigrants had colonised the UK.
You can't have an economy with 9 million people on benefits and huge levels of immigrants coming in. I mean, the UK is being colonised. It's costing too much money. It will cause. It'll cause. Well, the UK is being colonised by immigrants, really, isn't it?
The billionaire has said in a statement this afternoon, "I'm sorry that my choice of language has offended some people in the UK and Europe." Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer's spokesman said it's right that he's apologised for his offensive and wrong comments. Elsewhere, a 13-year-old boy has been charged with 2 counts of attempted murder after 2 boys were seriously injured in a stabbing at Kingsbury High School in Brenton, northwest London. He is due to appear in court today, according to the Met Police. The boy had entered a first-floor classroom at Brent School at lunchtime on Tuesday, sprayed a substance at a pupil before stabbing a 13-year-old boy. As the suspect fled, he stabbed a 12-year-old in a corridor before running from the building. He's still being questioned by police. Meanwhile, the government has introduced a child knife crime plan following that double stabbing. Children caught carrying a knife by the police could be forced to have mentoring sessions as part of government plans to drive down reoffending. Police will refer every child knife possession case to Youth Justice Services, and knife carriers could also be forced to stay in education or training under the plans.
Actually, one of the attractions and importance of this policy is we are investing in teams that are multidisciplinary. And what I mean by that, they're able to help children navigate, whether it's a health issue, whether it's an education issue, whether it's a housing issue. They will have someone, an appropriate adult, a professional who's experienced in these matters, helping children navigate some of the difficulties in life which may lead them to crime. Now, that's not to say that we are simply hugging children who carry a knife. Far from it. We have tough sentences for repeat offenders, and if anyone commits an offence with a knife, well, that's of course a completely different kettle of fish. But it's also important to tackle the causes of crime.
That's the Justice Minister Jake Richards there. Elsewhere, former Arsenal star Thomas Partey has been charged with further counts of rape. The 32-year-old Ghanaian international is currently facing trial after denying raping 2 women and sexually assaulting a third. Partey has now been charged with 2 additional counts of rape relating to an additional woman. The Crown Prosecution Service said the fresh counts come following a new investigation by the Met Police. A spokesperson said the allegations were first reported in August of 2025. Elsewhere, the UK economy grew by 0.1% in the final quarter of last year. The ONS shows that the economic growth also increased by 0.1% in December, with the ONS revising down November's figures from 0.3% to 0.2%. Downing Street says the government is confident the UK economy will begin to turn a corner this year.
Crucially, GDP per head of the population has increased over the last year after falling in the previous Parliament. The 6 cuts in interest rates means that people with a mortgage are going to be paying a bit less than they were before, around £1,400 less for somebody getting a new mortgage or renewing a mortgage. We're creating the conditions for growth by returning stability to the economy and bringing in investment. Is there more to do? Absolutely, but we've created the conditions of growth, and I'm confident that this will be the year that we see the results of that.
Elsewhere, police have named the suspect in the school shooting in Canada as 18-year-old Jesse Van Rooselaar. Deputy Police Commissioner Dwayne MacDonald gave this update.
We have a history of police attendance at the family residence. Some of those calls were related to mental health issues.
The individual was found dead at Tumbler Ridge Secondary School with what police describe as a self-inflicted injury. 6 people were killed and at least 25 others were injured at Tumbler Ridge Secondary School. 2 others, the suspect's mother and stepbrother, were found dead at a nearby home. Authorities said Van Rooselaar was born with a biological male but identified as a woman. The motive for the attack isn't yet known. And in sport, Thomas Tuchel has signed an extension to his contract as England head coach through to the end of the home European Championship in 2028. The Football Association announced today the German was set to stay on, with his previous deal only running until the end of this summer's World Cup in North America. Tuchel saying, "I'm very happy and proud to extend my time with England." The FA said the agreement with Tuchel would provide clarity and full focus on the World Cup, in the hope the extension will silence talk around his future, which could otherwise prove a distraction. Those are the latest GB News headlines. For now, more news in half an hour.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Here's a snapshot of the markets. The pound buying you $1.3637 and €1.1482. The price of gold, £3,712, 32 pence per ounce. The FTSE 100 is at 10,479 points.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 9 minutes past 1. Now, the co-owner of Manchester United, Sir Jim Ratcliffe, has apologised for claiming that Britain had been colonised by immigrants.
In his statement, Sir Jim Ratcliffe said, quote, "I am sorry that my choice of language has offended some people in the UK and Europe, but it is important to raise the issue of controlled and well-managed immigration."
Well, let's take a listen to what he said yesterday in his interview.
You can't you can't have an economy with 9 million people on benefits and huge levels of immigrants coming in. I mean, the UK is being colonised. It's costing too much money. It will cause... It'll cause... Well, yeah. The UK is being colonised by immigrants, really, isn't it?
Well, the FA is now reviewing Ratcliffe's remarks to see if there's been a rule breach.
Well, joining us now is GB News political editor Christopher Hope. Christopher, you've been in that briefing this morning. It's a small win for Sir Keir Starmer. He said Sir Jim Ratcliffe must apologise, and he has. But what else is new?
Yeah, I mean, Sophie, I'm not sure this issue has quite gone away. Number 10 said this at the same time as during our briefing when this apology emerged. They said the PM asked for an apology and it's been issued. Before the apology was issued, though, there were some tougher remarks from Number 10. They said these comments are inflammatory, divisive, inaccurate and wrong. They, of course, offence a large number of people. There had been no attempt to reach out to him by Number 10. There's nothing wrong with a serious debate about immigration. The system has not been working as it should, but they called him out for which he was wrong in terms of saying the population has gone up by 12 million since 2020. In fact, that's the case since 2000, so he's got his dates wrong. But the sentiment, I think, is what they're trying to talk to. Now, of course, it's all about language, this issue of talking about immigration. We heard from the Prime Minister in May last year, and I was there for that press conference, when he talked about that nations depend on fair rules. Without them, we risk becoming an island of strangers. That quote, of course, was also echoing Enoch Powell's remarks in the River of Blood speech in 1969. Number 10 then moved back from that. But it is very difficult, it seems, for people to talk about immigration and not get jumped upon. You heard there the FA looking at his remarks by Jim Ratcliffe. He has said sorry that these remarks have offended. I think it's also worth looking at what else he said. He attacked the fact that we do pay millions of people not to work in this country, and that's not sustainable. That hasn't been talked about, by the way, and that is worth talking about, because this government is not yet even going near to bringing down numbers on benefits. Both reviews by Stephen Timms, the Welfare Minister, and Alan Milburn, the former Health Minister, they are not looking at cutting the benefits bill. I think maybe that's also what Jim Ratcliffe was saying. He's apologised for using the word colonising because of the connotations it has. But despite that, I think some would say, yes, where they live has been overwhelmed by people arriving. There hasn't really been a conversation about that. The Tories ran through 5 elections pledging to cut migration. They didn't. It may be falling now because of other economic issues now, maybe down to net zero this year. But this is a debate, I think, which needs to be had, many would say, but the language was arguably clumsy, and it appears that's what Jim Ratcliffe is saying. But I think the point there, that some areas in this country are being overrun by people arriving, there's no debate about that. I think that debate, has to be had. Number 10 agree with that, but they don't like the language from Sir Jim Ratcliffe.
They don't like the language from Sir Jim Ratcliffe. Christopher Hope, as you have pointed out, last year the Prime Minister said this. I've got a bit more of his speech in front of me. That the previous government conducted a one-nation experiment in open borders, conducted on a country that voted for control. This Labour government is shutting down the lab. The experiment is over. We'll deliver what you've asked for time and time again. We'll take back control of our borders. These rules become even more important. Without them, we risk becoming an island of strangers, not a country that walks forward together. I mean, this was the Prime Minister's impassioned speech, obviously not written by him, but written for him, as he later admitted, which probably gets to the core of why people don't trust our politicians. But ultimately, what's the difference in the sentiment of what was written for Sir Keir Starmer versus what Sir Jim Ratcliffe had to say?
Well, I asked that exact question, Tom, to the spokesman, and they point out that the PM had resiled from those remarks and admitted that he hadn't held them up to the light, I think was the quote the PM used at the time. So they moved away from that. The PM said about those remarks from Jim Ratcliffe, they're offensive and wrong. Britain is a proud, tolerant and divisive and a diverse country. Forgive me, Jim Ratcliffe should apologise. I've been around politics a while, as you have, Tom. Sophie may find all this surprising, but I think there's an extent here where the government is quite keen to change the subject from what it has been talking about or being forced to talk about, which is the losing of lots of key people behind the scenes in the building behind me, the Chief of Staff on Sunday, the Director of Comms on Monday, and as things stand, they can't even tell us that the top civil servant in charge of the government is actually in post. They won't say whether Chris Wormold has been moved on or not. So there's lots of chatter around the government. It feels chaotic. I think that's maybe the part of the concern here. So, no question, number 10 and the PM were upset by those remarks, but I would also say, as a journalist, it suits them to try and change the subject.
Well, Christopher Hope, thanks indeed for being there in Downing Street, at the heart of it all for us. Cheers.
Now, as Sir Keir Starmer's position as Prime Minister continues to hang in the balance, critics have been warning that an even more left-wing leader could soon take the stage.
However, at a time when growing numbers of voters are calling for lower taxes, not higher taxes, how would the public react if the Labour Party lurched even further to the political left?
Well, joining us now is the editor at the Sunday Telegraph, Alistair Heath. Alistair, thanks for joining us this afternoon. Now, yesterday at PMQs, we were hearing the Prime Minister using that kind of language about his humble beginnings. He said the most working-class cabinet in the history of this country, really trying to push that kind of working-class ethos that the Labour Party is supposed to have. Do we think that that's part of his plan now, given all of the negative PR he's been receiving recently? Is he trying to kind of claw back the support of some of those Labour left-wing backbenchers?
Well, if that's his plan, then he doesn't have one. I mean, that would be a catastrophic failure, really. I mean, the point is the working classes no longer support Labour, right? I mean, that's what's happened. They probably largely didn't already at the last election when Labour only got 34% of the vote. Now that they're at about 20% or so in the polls, they've lost the working class electorate. They're not going to gain the working class electorate back. The Labour Party is now a party of middle-class left-wingers, of urbanites, of ultra-progressive people, that sort of stuff, and their main fighters are the Green Party. So they're kind of wasting their time talking about the working class and pretending to be working class. I think the big problem for this government, right, is that they are a very left-wing government. And the second big problem is that the Labour Party doesn't realise they're a very left-wing government.
Yes.
The Labour Party actually think they're some sort of centrist government. They keep compromising all the time and so on. And that's just absurd. That's not where the public is. The bulk of the public, Middle England, the aspirational working class, the culturally conservative middle class, those sorts of people believe this government is far too left-wing. And we're seeing a massive thermostatic reaction to these left-wing policies. And the British Social Survey's attitude shows quite clearly a massive increase in people who would like lower taxes and lower public spending. And, in fact, some of these figures are astonishing, right? That you've got the highest ever percentage of people who want to cut tax and cut spending, including on healthcare and on welfare. And you've got very little support now for increasing welfare, even for poor people. So you've got this big contingent in the centre of British politics who are actually way, way, way to the right of the Labour Party, and in fact to the right of where the previous Conservative government was.
Well, this is the thing. I've got many criticisms to make of Tony Blair, but one thing that he did do in 1997 is promise to stick to the Tory spending limits of Ken Clarke when he was Chancellor. I mean, could you imagine if Tony Blair had come in 1997 and the first thing he did was to raise taxes by £40 billion, or to restrict labour market regulations, as this government has done, or or even the massive spending on welfare, which, yes, did come under New Labour, but much, much later in their term. I mean, on almost every front, this government is not doing a New Labour thing of campaigning on New Labour and governing on New Labour.
I mean, this is not a New Labour government at all, right? The soft left, as they call themselves, it's a misnomer. They're really radical left-wingers. But the so-called soft left in the Labour Party think that Starmer's effectively a traitor, that he's gone too far to the right, that he's compromised with Blairism, you know, they didn't like his former advisor, and so on. And now they're hoping that they control him. They think they control him. And I think Starmer talking about the working class and pretending to be working class himself and so on is part of him trying to say to the soft left, oh, look, I'm actually quite left-wing. But that's all wrong. It's just not right.
How important do you think it was that the morning after McSweeney left, the first cabinet minister, 2 mornings after McSweeney left, the first cabinet minister that Number 10 put up was Ed Miliband? Does this show sort of where it's no longer Wes Streeting doing morning rounds, right?
Yes, this is where it's going. Ed Miliband has massive power over this government. How his net zero policy has been strengthened. You know, this government is hurtling towards net zero. It's obliterating UK manufacturing. It's declaring war. It's waging war on the British consumer. It's an anti-consumerist government that wants to preach and restrict and regulate and limit. It's not a government that wants everyone to get rich and to own more things and to travel abroad more, right? It's a government that's committed to fight against all these things. And this is why you see that the core, you know, is only appealing to a core of very, very left-wing people now. The centre and the right have turned against this government, and I think the right in particular is radicalised. They want far lower taxes. They think Starmer's tried socialism and he's proved once and for all that it doesn't work. The soft left, on the other hand, doesn't see it that way. They think Starmer's being too right-wing and that the only answer is even more taxes, even more spending, even more net zero, even more raids on private schools, you know, even more of a wealth tax than Rachel Reeves is already plotting to do with her, you know, super council tax on expensive properties.
Let me ask you a question then. Given all of that, and it is a big question, you said earlier...
I like big questions.
You said earlier that if that is the plan, to try and get the lefties back on side, then he has no plan.
Well, it's a wrong kind of left. It's a wrong kind of lefty, right? Because basically the working classes look at this government and they think these guys are not on my side, right? In the past, when Blair was in power, when Thatcher was in power, they got the working class vote by saying, we're going to make you rich. And there was a disagreement as to how they're going to make them rich. But we're going to make you rich, you're going to be able to afford foreign holidays, you can buy 2 cars, you can buy your own home, all that sort of stuff.
We're very comfortable with you getting filthy rich as long as you pay your taxes, as one Peter Mandelson once said.
Well, yeah, but he was obviously talking about the very rich. But I think the aspirational working class and the culturally conservative middle classes, to call, you know, to narrow that, those people just want to be better off. They're like, you know, it's like in America, in Australia. In every country, those people want to be better off. But this government does not really want them to be better off, and even if it did, it's failing disastrously, as we've seen with the economic growth figures. This economy is stagnating. There's no growth. So when you spend more and more on the public sector, you're going to have to take more and more away from the private sector. That means those sorts of aspirational people. The only people who are better off under this government are people on welfare, pensioners, and people on very low wages. If you're on the minimum wage, you've gained quite a lot and you pay less tax and all that kind of stuff. But basically, if you're in the upper half of the income distribution, you're being hammered and you're paying for this ever-growing state, and there's a growing rebellion.
There's an economic consensus that wage controls were a pretty bad idea in the 1970s. That if you have the government trying to say what wages people can earn, that's a ridiculous level of state control. And yet we've sort of crept into that. Now the highest proportion of wages in the economy since the 1970s are controlled by the government, because the minimum wage has now risen to about a third the level of the average wage.
Yes, but it's even worse than that, because basically a very large chunk of UK wages and UK prices are now set either directly or indirectly by the government. So the minimum wage now reaches a record number of people. But if you earn a bit more than the minimum wage, your wage is effectively fixed by the minimum wage, because employers have to give you a rise whenever there's a minimum wage. So all those prices are controlled by the government, and you've got all sorts of other prices, energy prices, all sorts of other prices, obviously the NHS and all that sort of stuff, that have got this policy of controlled prices. So the government is setting more and more prices, the market is weaker and weaker and allocates fewer and fewer resources, and then guess what? There's no economic growth. Guess what? Free markets work. Socialism doesn't work. It's been proved time and time again. And I think that's what this government, and unfortunately the previous government, which had also fallen into this kind of trap, have shown. The public increasingly want change. They want more growth, they want fewer taxes, and they want less spending. We are at a tipping point. And I think the Conservative Party and the Reform Party have to pay attention and understand that it's time for some radicalism, some thinking the unthinkable.
So if Boris Johnson was Ted Heath, Keir Starmer is Harold Wilson, I suppose we're just due our Callaghan and then we get our Thatcher moment, perhaps.
Right, well, I suspect we'll get a Callaghan faster than we think.
Well, Alistair Heath, thanks indeed for coming into the studio and talking through the particulars of this very confusing government.
Absolutely. Now, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Still lots more to come on today's show. Claims of a boys' club at the top of the government. We'll debate whether Labour has a woman problem.
But after the break, Patrick Christys is on the ground in East Durham, hearing from locals about crime, jobs and whether promises of regeneration could possibly deliver.
All of that and more to come. You're with GB News, Britain's #1 news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Do you trust what you're being told? Good, because neither do I.
Those are just facts.
I'm Alex Armstrong, and on my show, we'll expose the spin.
Well, I want to answer that, because you didn't let me last time, because you always speak over me.
The broken promises.
To deny that is denying the truth.
And the hypocrisy.
We can allow.
Stop.
We can allow.
Politics, policy, parliament. Nothing is off limits. No sugarcoating, no fear of offence, just the truth laid bare. Tune in every Saturday and Sunday at 9 p.m. for Alex Armstrong Tonight, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christys Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience, because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christys Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. The time is 27 minutes past 1, and you're watching Good Afternoon Britain.
Well, today, GB News' very own Patrick Christys is in East Durham, where he's speaking to members of the community about the challenges the region faces.
The area consists of higher crime rates and people on universal credit compared to the rest of the country.
Yes, 21% have no qualifications, and there are just over 180 crimes per 1,000 people, though not right in the centre there, which is lovely, which we're looking at on the television. Well, Patrick Christys joins us from East Durham, rather than the City of London, as we've been looking at gorgeous helicopter pictures of. So, Patrick, who are you with, and where exactly are you?
Yes, well, this is not a film set. This is 5th Street in Hordern in County Durham. Once the beating heart, really, of heavy industry in Britain. Now, sadly, as you can see behind me here, boarded up, boarded up, boarded up. And if you just follow me round here, we are going to speak to Dawn Bellingham, who is actually a Reform UK councillor here. Dawn, thank you very much for joining us today. And let's just walk towards this, because I think our viewers and listeners are going to find this fascinating. We're looking at a fake window and fake door here, aren't we?
Right.
How have we ended up like this here? What's gone on?
Well, it's basically 100 years of labour in Hordern, and this is how they the whole industry, after the pit closed in 1983, this is how everybody left the area, and it was handed over, cheap housing, to absent landlords. A lot of the people that bought these houses when they first went up for sale, Patrick, they had never stepped foot in Hordern, so they didn't know anything about the area, they didn't know anything about the community. But they bought the houses and they just renovated, spent very little on them just to get any people in them and just to make money, really.
Just walk with me a bit down here, because some of them are still lived in, most of them clearly are not. You grew up around here.
Yes.
What was this like 20, 30 years ago?
This was a fantastic community. The whole place was kept immaculate. Obviously, men were out down the pit working all day. The women used to come out and scrub the steps every single morning. It was absolutely immaculate down here. We all used to play in these streets. We all used to kick football up and down, play netball and things like that. We all used to have such good fun in these streets. If we weren't in these streets, we were down on the beach.
So let's try to look a bit more positively at the future then. Have a look around here. It's all boarded up, as you can see. I don't mean to be unkind. Obviously, it's a bit desolate at the moment, isn't it? What can be done to resurrect this area?
Well, we've got a £10.7 million investment on the table. It's called Hordern Master Plan, where we're going to demolish all of these houses and rebuild. What the people of Hordern want, Patrick, are warm, comfortable, economical houses. These are cold, damp, and they don't build houses like these anymore. They're not up to legislation, so just rejuvenating them is not really going to cut it.
No. I mean, I'm having a look around here and I'm thinking that, this is the kind of place that if you did do them up a little bit, homeless veterans could come and live. Let's have a look at this here quickly, actually, if you don't mind. Sorry, but I've just noticed this, well, what was the point of putting all of these kind of fake windows and doors on, really? Who came up with this idea? Why did they decide to do it?
This is a number of years ago now. This came up with this idea, and it was basically to help the people that still live here, to help the place look just a little bit more attractive. Obviously, as you can see there now, they've been broken into. We get the wardens round all the time having to reseal them up and things like that. But it was just really to try and make cosmetically, put a sticky plaster over it, really, to make it look a bit better than what it was really.
Yeah, and it's not just industrial history that was here and has sadly been lost. It's just down the road from here was where Billy Elliot was filmed, wasn't it?
Exactly, yes, Easington, those back streets, that's where Billy Elliot was dancing around. It was, and that was great because obviously it brought the film set up, and so people could see what the back streets of these colliery towns are actually like, and we loved it, but it certainly needs the regeneration now.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, thank you very much, Dawn. We're going to have a bit of a longer chat because I've got my show coming here live from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. This is what GB News is all about, getting out into these towns, these areas, speaking to local people in the local community and really seeing how we can actually shine a light on areas like this and what can be done to see those green shoots of recovery in Britain. Back to you.
Absolutely astonishing, Patrick. Those houses built when Britain was rich, boarded up now that Britain is poor. Patrick Christie's, thanks indeed for joining us.
Yes, thanks, Patrick. Now, this is Good Afternoon Britain here on GB News. Lots more coming up on today's show. But first, let's take a look at the latest news headlines with Tatiana.
Sophie, thank you. The top stories. Manchester United co-owner Sir Jim Ratcliffe has apologised over his claims that immigrants had colonised the UK, saying in a statement, "I'm sorry that my choice of language has offended some people in the UK and Europe." The Prime Minister's spokesman said it's right that he apologised for his offensive and wrong comments. Elsewhere, a 13-year-old boy has been charged with 2 counts of attempted murder after 2 boys were seriously injured in a stabbing at Kingsbury High School in Brent in northwest London. The UK economy grew by 0.1% in the final quarter of last year. Figures from the ONS show. Downing Street says the government is confident the UK economy will begin to turn a corner this year. Those are the latest headlines. More in half an hour.
You can now watch GB News live across the United States of America and the world on Truth Plus. Scan the QR code to find out more or visit gbnews.com/truth.
Well, lots more to come on today's programme. Yes, claims of a boys' club at the top of the government will debate whether Labour has a woman problem.
All of that and much more to come here with GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Cold air sitting across the north. Another wet day for many, but some bright spells across parts of the south where it is, at least for the time being, still relatively mild. Low pressure systems sitting across the UK, generating quite a bit of rain, and increasingly as the cold air moves in, we'll see a bit more snow coming in. Some brighter skies over northern Scotland, some snow showers in Shetland. Further south, we've got some rain showers. Some brighter spells now developing over southwest England and South Wales, but most areas cloudy with further rain and drizzle and some hill snow over parts of central and southern Scotland. Temperatures really struggling in parts of the east with that brisk wind coming in from the North Sea. And as that colder air moves in, we will see more and more of the rain turning to snow. Some snow flurries likely across northeastern parts of Scotland. Could well turn icy as temperatures drop through the night as well. Across southern Scotland, northern England, we'll see over the hills more and more snow coming in here. Higher routes likely to be affected as we go through the night and into tomorrow. Further south, more of a mishmash with rain showers and some clearer spells. But as I say, as we go through the night, a bit concerned about parts of the North Pennines, particularly to the east, where we'll see the snow really building up in some areas. Again, particularly over the hills. We could see some even down to lower levels for a time as the wet weather sinks south over northern England, even into parts of North Wales. Some hill snow likely here. And things turning colder and colder with a widespread frost across Scotland. That could lead to some icy conditions wherever we've seen any showers around. Friday is then a real mishmash with rain, sleet, snow over northern England and North Wales, moving down into the Midlands. Something a bit brighter in the south initially, but then more showers. A bright, fine day for a good part of Scotland and Northern Ireland, although it could be icy first thing. And temperatures only 3 or 4 degrees, still a little milder in the far south.
Thank you, Britain, for the thousands of you who are becoming friends of GB News each and every week.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. On the M8, westbound restrictions remain between Junction 2 and Junction 3 following a road traffic collision. In Lincolnshire, the A46 is shut southbound between the A57 and the A1434 after a crash, with delays likely until around 3:11 this afternoon. On the trains, Northern has major disruption between Manchester Piccadilly and Manchester Airport, plus problems between Wakefield Kirkgate and Sheffield, while TransPennine Express also reports major disruption on the Manchester Piccadilly to Manchester Airport route. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 37 minutes past 1. Now, Sir Keir Starmer is under pressure from senior women in his own party after appointing Matthew Doyle to the House of Lords, despite controversy over his continued friendship with a man charged for child sexual offences.
Female Labour figures within the party have criticised what they describe as the boys' club culture at the top of government.
Well, the Culture Secretary, Lisa Nandy, describes internal briefings as toxic and dripping with misogyny. So, does the Labour Party have a problem with women?
Well, we're joined now by Labour Councillor Stuart Fawcett and CEO of the 50-50 Parliament, Leanne Nicholl. Thank you both for joining us this afternoon. Stuart, I'll start with yourself, if that's OK. Comments from the Culture Secretary yesterday, its comments are dripping with misogyny, and it's a toxic culture, this boys' culture in Westminster. What do you make of those comments?
I haven't seen the particular briefings that the Culture Secretary refers to, but to look at this issue broadly, if we say that is there a women's problem in Labour? No, I don't think there is. We've got a pretty well-balanced parliamentary Labour Party. We've run all-women shortlists in order to make sure that women have fair access to getting elected. And indeed, even there is a meeting of the Parliamentary Labour Party for Women, which the Prime Minister attended the other night, which I think this issue was first raised about. Now, when you look at Downing Street in itself, so ministers and the Prime Minister can't choose, he can't hire and fire civil service appointments generally, other than at the moment in the case of the head civil servant that's being recruited. But actually, if you look at within Downing Street at the moment, I think the Prime Minister is responding to concerns about this. His new Joint Chiefs of Staff are both women, and I think that's part of the response that's going on in order to address this culture within Downing Street there, where there is some concern.
OK, Leanne, what do you make of it?
Well, the whole of politics is an old boys club, and the Labour Party is not immune. And I think this is a moment for the Prime Minister to reset. As the Chancellor has just mentioned, he has now appointed 2 women to his senior team, but we know that before that it was a predominantly male team, and we know that this is part of the reason that led to this really questionable at best appointment of Lord Mandelson, who was connected with Jeffrey Epstein. I think, yes, the numbers are good in Labour. They could still be better. We're not at parity anywhere in our political system. Nearly 100 years on from equal franchise, no party has reached parity. And I think that this is a good moment for reset, but we should never have got to this point in the first place. And,
Leanne, sorry to interrupt you, but why is it that more women in Downing Street would have led to a different decision on Peter Mandelson? I mean, I can point you plenty of examples of women throughout the history of the Labour Party who have had close associations with paedophiles. I mean, there was one very senior Labour figure who actually worked for the Paedophile Information Exchange in the 1970s. I mean, why does being a woman make you immune to this stuff?
I take your point. What I'm talking about is a critical mass of women at all spheres of government, which leads to better decision-making overall. And with regards to this particular appointment, we know that there were senior women in the Labour Party who were warning against this decision and who were not listened to. We also know that there was a really successful midlife woman already in that post who was jettisoned in favour of this man who has really questionable connections, and as we've seen play out, it was a terrible appointment. Not only the fact that it undermines the government's strategy on violence against women and girls and their commitment to that, but it also points to just really terrible politics with regards to his associations with the, in quotes, financier.
Stuart, I just want to ask you, because Baroness Harman has suggested to the PM that he revive the position, the first Secretary of State, and that he should appoint a woman into that position. Do you think that would do him any favours? Do you think it would do the Labour government any favours, both in the sense of how it functions, but also in terms of their PR right now?
Just want to point out that just going back to some comments made there, that 190 women are Labour MPs out of 404. So that's almost parity. I can't speak for other parties, but a lot of work and effort has gone into making sure that women have equal access to election. And also the 3 great offices of state. So we've had the first female Chancellor, the Foreign and Home Secretary are all women, which is a first. So in terms of your question about optics and PR, first of all, going back to Tom's point, on this particular issue, would having women in posts have necessarily had a different material outcome? And that's a different point of debate. But on the equality point of view and women having access to these positions and being able to hold them rightly so, I think the party already has made quite good steps towards that, and I think that's a credit to the Prime Minister.
Is there something just ever so slightly uncomfortable, Leanne, about the idea that women must all behave in a certain sort of, I don't know, softly way, and men all must behave in a slightly autistic way? And I mean, this is the sort of argument that I often hear about Dominic Cummings and Morgan McSweeney, that because they were quite forthright in their directions, this was turned into a gender issue. But there are lots of men who are very softly, and lots of women who are hard as nails. I mean, it doesn't seem to me that it's necessarily a gender issue at all.
I think it is a gender issue. I think that, as I've said before, if women are listened to, and specifically on this very specific point of appointing somebody who has historical links that were known about to a known paedophile, I think it is absolutely a gendered point. Not all women and not all men behave in the same way, and we shouldn't, and that's absolutely not what we are talking about. And also, I do think that the point that you made earlier, if a woman makes a mistake, then she makes that mistake on behalf of all women. But if a man makes a mistake, that's his mistake alone. And I think we would do well to remember that we are talking more about not tokenism and not one person in one area, but having a critical mass of women at all levels of government, because there are proven outcomes that this is better not just for women, but for everybody.
Well, we're going to have to leave it there, but thank you both for joining us. That's Labour Councillor Stuart Fawcett and CEO of the 50/50 Parliament, Leanne Neckle. Thank you both for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you.
Well, now it's time to see if you could be in a chance with winning a luxury £10,000 holiday for two. And that's not all. We're also giving you £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you'd like as well. It's an incredible prize package worth £40,000. Here's Hayley Sparks with all the details.
You could win cash and the ultimate holiday in our two-part Great British Giveaway. Thanks to Riviera Travel, you could be jetting off on a £10,000 dream holiday for two people. With flights, transfers and luxury accommodation included, you'll get to choose the kind of holiday you want. So whether you're looking for hotel comfort or on a relaxing river cruise, you'll be able to find the perfect match from over 30 global destinations on offer. And because the holiday is handpicked with you in mind, you know it's going to be perfect. Plus, we're going to give you £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. Your summer can start here, so make sure you don't miss out.
For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB19, PO Box 8690, Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 27th of February. The winner may be contacted live after all entry routes have closed. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good
Well, that
luck
sounds
indeed.
good to me.
Oh, yeah.
Very envious of Hayley there, dearie me.
Yeah, when do we get our promotional trip abroad? Come on, GB News. Well, this is Good Afternoon Britain. There's plenty more to come.
Yes, a new campaign launches this morning, very seriously, to encourage farmers to break the silence on mental health. GB News is in Wickford talking to farmers about this crucial issue.
But first of all, here's the travel weather. So if you win that prize pot, you know where to go.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Whilst it's perhaps not as unsettled as it was this time last week across much of southern Europe, there's heavy rain, there's strong winds to watch out for. Lots of wet weather across Spain and Portugal through tomorrow and across southern parts of France. Some hill snow mixed in with this. Tomorrow actually looks largely dry across much of Italy, but that wet weather will feed its way eastwards, and currently across Greece and Cyprus there's heavy thundery rain around, and some of that will continue as we go into the weekend. Elsewhere, some dry weather for many.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
This may get you a little bit angry. Not that Alton Towers has cracked down on visitors with ADHD and anxiety for using disability fast lane passes, but the fact that they were around in the first place.
They say that demand for the Q-skip passes has surged. Well, not surprising.
No, well, the move comes as obviously we're seeing more diagnoses of ADHD and people claiming, you know, crippling anxiety. Well, not even crippling anxiety, actually, because that's a different matter, but, claiming anxiety. The medication for ADHD has more than doubled since 2015, though it is worth pointing out for those people who really do have ADHD that getting hold of the medication is nigh impossible at the moment.
I think queue jumping is not the right word. This is about making a reasonable adjustment to help people feel more comfortable, to allow them to access areas and also parts of society that they may not otherwise be able to access. And I like to think that people don't do this to lie or to get ahead. I think they genuinely do need it, and I don't think we will be questioning this as much if it was a physical disability that we could see.
Alton Towers is a well-run commercial business, so I'll say something for them which they won't say because they look after their customers, but they've become aware that some people are gaming the system. And so they haven't banned people with anxiety, they've just tightened up the rules, number of people who can go with them and the border at which somebody can be accepted as having anxiety. Now, the problem is, let's get to the core issue. Anxiety is the modern day equivalent of, doctor, I've got a bad back, OK? You can get signed off with anxiety by just talking to a doctor down a Zoom screen for a few minutes and you're off.
GB News, the People's Channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's just gone 10 to 2.
Now, new research from the Farm Safety Foundation shows that farmers' mental well-being has fallen to its lowest point in 4 years.
Well, in 2024, sadly, 47 farmers died by suicide in England and Wales, sparking wider discussion about the mental health crisis in farming.
Well, joining us now live in Wickford, Essex, is GB News reporter Will Godley, and he's joined by farmer and mental health nurse Chloe Lucas. Will, thank you for joining us about this really, really serious issue. What can you tell us?
Well, Sophie, Tom, good afternoon to you. Yeah, from this farm home to Highland cattle, rather beautiful animals behind me. We're not in Scotland, we are in Essex, despite the fact these cows might suggest otherwise, enjoying their afternoon lunch. But we're not here today to talk about the cattle, but rather the people who look after them, British farmers, because new research out this week suggests that mental health amongst farmers is lagging behind compared to the general population, and particularly amongst farmers farmers over the age of 40, their mental health is at a 4-year low, according to this research done by Farm Safety Foundation. And they found it's particularly farmers who are over the age of 60 who have seen the biggest decline in their mental health. So let's ask Chloe Lucas about particularly what the challenges are facing farmers at the moment.
I think farming is becoming increasingly difficult. I think finances as well. Everything's going up in price. A lot of the older farmers that I found going on farm, they're very independent. They work alone. I think a lot of it is very lonely as well. They don't necessarily want to reach out. I think because they're so independent, they just want to just get on with what they're doing on the farm. And farmers have been in the news recently over the last year or so to do with this family farm tax that was introduced, then U-turned. Has that had an impact? I would say so, 100%. The government have completely let the farming industry down. You know, they are trying to tackle climate change. They are looking after all of our wildlife, all the countryside. They're farming, they're generational farmers. They put all their love and care into something that the government think that they can just take away. So now these people feel that they can't afford to run their farms, and ultimately what's happening is they're selling, which is such a massive shame. And very quickly, if there's one thing viewers, listeners can do to support British farmers, what is that? Please go to Yellow Wellies. We are running the campaign this week, which is Mind Your Head Foundation for farm safety and mental health in farmers. If you get in touch with the Yellow Wellies company, they can point you in the right direction for help and support. Wonderful. Chloe, thank you very much for joining us on GB News and delivering what is a very important message.
Absolutely. Will Godley, thanks for being there for us.
And for any farmers watching, do please get in touch with the agency that Chloe mentioned there, Yellow Wellies. This is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Lots more to come on today's show, but don't go anywhere.
Yes, first of all, let's check in on the weather forecast where you are and hope that the rain doesn't continue in perpetuity, not least for the farmers.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good afternoon. Things turning colder for all of us over the next 24 hours, and as the colder air moves in, the rain will increasingly turn to snow, mostly over hills. Things could also turn a little icy over parts of the north as the temperatures drop. A wet end to the day for southern Scotland and northern England. In this zone, as I said, the rain turning more and more to snow through the night. Some snow showers in northern Scotland where it's going to be frosty and icy. It's all about the rain in the south. Further rain showers coming in here as temperatures hold up above freezing. But further north, there will be some frost, certainly over northern Scotland. Quite a hard frost, and as I said, the risk of ice here. Continued threat of some snow then over northern England, especially through the night and into Friday morning. There'll be a sprinkling of wintry showers over northern Scotland, which may make things icy, but much of Scotland actually waking up to some sunshine on Friday. It should turn brighter across Northern Ireland, perhaps a bit of a grey start. Then this zone over northern England and North Wales, where there'll be a messy mix of rain, sleet and some snow, whereas in the south it's mostly further rain that we will see. But some of these higher routes, fairly unpleasant first thing in the morning with the snow continuing to fall over the hills, and it could for a time even come down to lower levels over northern England, North Wales, perhaps even a little bit over the Midlands as we go through the day. Turning brighter in southern Scotland and Northern Ireland with some sunshine, some sunny spells in the south at first, but then some heavy showers likely, particularly in southwest England for the afternoon. Again, potentially causing a little bit of disruption. 7 to 9 Celsius here, but elsewhere a lot colder than that. And look at this, much colder for Saturday. Widespread frost again. It could be icy, bar a few showers in the far north and along the east coast. It's a sunny day on Saturday, dry and sunny. We'll cloud over a little bit from the west as we go through the day, with more rain set to move in. And as that comes in on Saturday night, it could generate a bit of snow. But ahead of that, as I said, most places looking dry and bright, but chilly on Saturday.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
You could win cash and the ultimate holiday in our 2-part Great British Giveaway. Thanks to Riviera Travel, you could be jetting off on a £10,000 dream holiday for 2 people. With flights, transfers and luxury accommodation included, you'll get to choose the kind of holiday you want. Plus, we're going to give you £30,000 in tax-free cash.
For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB19, PO Box 8690, Derby, DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 27th of February. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates, 5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5. You got me. You got me good there. Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show. It's not a bad brand. Yeah. Uncensored.
Very, very racy tonight.
On the unpredictable.
What did she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace
Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, this is Jubes & Co with you.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie is here to GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection, tune in to GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 2 o'clock on Thursday, the 12th of February. I'm Tom Harwood.
And I'm Sophie Reaper.
You can't have an economy with 9 million people on benefits and huge levels of immigrants coming in. I mean, the UK is being colonised.
Sir Jim Ratcliffe has apologised after claiming Britain had been colonised by immigrants. The Manchester United co-owner said he regretted the offence caused by his choice of language. That's after the Prime Minister demanded he say sorry.
Now, the Chancellor promised growth, but the latest figures show the economy limped to the end of last year, 0.1%, or in per capita terms, minus 0.1%. So has Labour really got a plan to fire things up, or are the critics right to say there simply isn't any strategy?
Meanwhile, Patrick Christie's head to East Durham to hear directly from residents about the challenges facing that area.
And Andrew Mountbatten Windsor has been loaned millions of pounds, of course, by the late Queen, Prince Philip, and then Prince Charles to fund his settlement with Virginia Giuffre. As his sources say, he's yet to repay a penny.
And a new campaign launched today encourages farmers to break the silence on mental health. We'll be speaking to some farmers about what they make of it.
Well, Sir Jim Ratcliffe was saying something that I think is a thorny political issue, because ultimately, whether or not the words were the correct things to use, it is a sentiment that is shared by millions of people up and down the country.
It's all come down to semantics, hasn't it? It's whether or not the word colonising was meant in what you could describe as quite an inappropriate way, or in the realistic way, in that millions of immigrants have come into the UK. But it depends where you sit on the fence, doesn't it?
Right, it's completely fair to say there are parts of the country that look completely different to how they looked 50 years ago.
Yeah.
There has been significant change. Now, some people will say that it's brilliant that there's lots of diversity in little patches and all the rest of it, and in some ways we always have had that. We've had little Chinatowns, we've had curry houses since the Victorian era. I mean, brilliant. But it's about the scale of it. I mean, a Chinatown being 1 or 2 streets in the middle of a city is a lovely thing because you can go visit it. But entire cities looking like a different culture, I think that people get concerned at that scale of the change.
And that, of course, is the root of the issue, and that is probably why Sir Jim has come out now and given that apology, not to mention the fact Number 10 and specifically the Prime Minister have demanded an apology from him, which is quite something in itself, isn't it?
Yeah, should the Prime Minister have waded into this one? That's a big question.
Well, then you could argue, should Sir Jim have waded into politics?
Maybe. But I mean, ultimately, the Prime Minister's got to represent the whole country. I think he's running scared, particularly this week, of a certain set
Well, it's
of
been
his
a
party.
difficult week for Sir Keir Starmer, hasn't it, in terms of optics. It's not been great at all. And as I said earlier, he took a bit of a battering from Kemi Badenoch yesterday, didn't he?
Well, do get your thoughts in. gbnews.com/your say is the way to get involved in the entire conversation. You can also scan that QR code that's just by Sophie's left elbow.
I'm glad you said elbow. But moving swiftly on, first here's your news headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
Good afternoon. The top stories. Over 50 immigration enforcement officers were deployed across London this morning to dismantle a suspected organised crime group who were believed to be smuggling migrants into the UK illegally. Following a 5-month-long investigation, officers targeted 5 suspects at 4 addresses across Hounslow and Croydon. The gang are believed to have been operating on an international scale, offering a sophisticated ferry-style service for Vietnamese migrants by meeting them, concealing them in vehicles under the driver's knowledge and boarding ferries destined for the UK. 2025 was the highest year on record for illegal working enforcement activity, with over 9,000 arrests and 12,800 raids carried out across the UK. Manchester United co-owner Sir Jim Ratcliffe has apologised over his claims immigrants had colonised the UK. The billionaire has said in a statement, "I'm sorry that my choice of language has offended some people in the UK and Europe." Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer's spokesperson said it's right that he apologised for his offensive and wrong comments. Elsewhere, a 13-year-old boy has been charged with 2 counts of attempted murder after 2 boys were seriously injured in a stabbing at Kingsbury High School in Brent in northwest London. He's accused of stabbing a pupil in the neck with a kitchen knife in front of numerous children in a classroom, a court's heard. The child sustained 3 stab wounds, a spinal fracture and injuries to the neck and hands that required surgery, a court heard today. The former pupil is accused of stabbing another child in the playground and spraying ant spray in the face of a third. The defendant filmed the entire attack on his phone, but there's no suggestion it was uploaded to social media. That's as the government has introduced a child knife crime plan following the double stabbing at that school in Brent. Children caught carrying a knife by the police could be forced to have mentoring sessions as part of government plans to drive down reoffending. Police will refer every child knife possession case to youth justice services, and knife carriers could also be forced to stay in education or training under the plans. Deputy Prime Minister David Lammy has spoken this afternoon.
Well, speaking to young people themselves, they've benefited from the turnaround scheme and the money that we put in to turn their lives around. Speaking to the young people, many of them are in the care system. But the important thing to do is if a young person is found carrying a knife, it's important that there's a referral from the police to youth services within a day, and that young person is being held, that there's action to deal with the causes that has led to that young person carrying a knife, so they do not go on to continue to do that.
Breaking news this hour, the killer of 12-year-old schoolboy Leo Ross has been named after a court order protecting his anonymity was lifted. Cian Moulton, who was 14 at the time of the attack, stabbed Leo in the stomach while he was walking home from school in Birmingham in January of last year. Moulton, now aged 15, was sentenced to a minimum term of 13 years at Birmingham Crown Court on Tuesday, having pleaded guilty to murder last month. Elsewhere, former Arsenal star Thomas Partey has been charged with further counts of rape. The 32-year-old Ghanaian international is currently facing trial after denying raping 2 women and sexually assaulting a third. Partey has now been charged with 2 additional counts of rape relating to an additional woman. The CPS said the fresh counts come following a new investigation by the Metropolitan Police. A spokesperson said the allegations were first reported in August of 2025. Elsewhere, the UK economy grew by 0.1% in the final quarter of last year. The ONS shows that economic growth also increased by 0.1% in December, with the ONS revising down November's figure from 0.3% to 0.2%. Downing Street saying the government is confident that the UK economy will begin to turn a corner this year.
Crucially, GDP per head of the population has increased over the last year after falling in the previous Parliament. The 6 cuts in interest rates means that people with a mortgage are going to be paying a bit less than they were before, around £1,400 less for somebody getting a new mortgage or renewing a mortgage. We're creating the conditions for growth by returning stability to the economy and bringing in investment. Is there more to do? Absolutely, but we've created the conditions of growth and I'm confident that this will be the year that we see the results of that.
Police have named the suspect in the school shooting in Canada as 18-year-old Jesse Van Roostelen. Deputy Police Commissioner Dwayne McDonald has given an update.
We have a history of police attendance at the family residence. Some of those calls were related to mental health issues.
The individual was found dead at Tumbler Ridge Secondary School with what police describe as a self-inflicted injury. 6 people were killed and at least 25 others were injured at Tumbler Ridge Secondary School. 2 others, the suspect's mother and stepbrother, were found dead at a nearby home. Authorities said Van Roostelen was born a biological male but identified as a woman, and the motive for the attack isn't yet known. Elsewhere in sport, Thomas Tuchel has signed an extension to his contract as England's head coach through to the end of the home European Championship in 2028. The Football Association announced today the German was set to stay on, with his previous deal only running until the end of this summer's World Cup in North America. Tuchel said he's very happy and proud to extend his time with England. The FA has said the agreement with Tuchel would provide clarity and full focus on the World Cup, in the hope the extension will silence talk around his future, which could otherwise prove a distraction. Those are the latest headlines. More in half an hour.
Tune in to GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player, on Nation Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 10 minutes past 2. Now, the co-owner of Manchester United, Sir Jim Ratcliffe, has apologised for claiming the UK has been colonised by immigrants.
In his statement, Sir Jim Ratcliffe said, "I am sorry that my choice of language has offended some people in the UK and Europe, but it is important to raise the issue of controlled and well-managed immigration."
Well, Sir Keir Starmer's spokesman said it is right that Sir Jim Ratcliffe has apologised for comments that he describes as offensive and wrong.
Let's take a listen to what he said in that interview yesterday.
You can't you can't have an economy with 9 million people on benefits and huge levels of immigrants coming in. I mean, the UK is being colonised. It's costing too much money. It will cause... It'll cause... Well, yeah. The UK is being colonised by immigrants, really, isn't it?
Well, joining us now is GB News political editor Christopher Hope. And Christopher, is this a win for the Prime Minister?
I mean, sort of. I mean, Number 10 tells us that the PM asked for an apology on Twitter last night. It's now been issued. The language was offensive to people on the left. Number 10 found that offensive. Before the apology, which happened during our meeting with the PM spokesman this morning, Number 10 had said this, that Britain is a proud and diverse country. The comments by Sir Jim Ratcliffe are inflammatory, divisive, inaccurate and wrong, and they have caused offence to a large number of people, he said, adding that there's nothing wrong with having a serious debate about immigration. The system has been working as it should. Jim Ratcliffe was wrong on a figure. The population hasn't gone up by 12 million since 2020, but since 2000. So there has been a bigger population growth, a lot of it through immigration, but not in the short period he talked about. Now, Nigel Farage has been on social media in the past hour. He is, I think, trying to keep the debate going after the apology. He says 1 million people living in Britain don't speak English. He pointed to London Underground signs in different languages. He said areas of our towns and cities have been completely changed, and he says Jim Ratcliffe is right. If you look at what the apology Jim Ratcliffe gave there, he said, didn't he, he's really sorry. He's sorry, he says, that my choice of language has offended some people in the UK and Europe. I think, for me, he's saying, I'm trying to make a point here about some areas being overwhelmed by migration. The language was clumsy on using the word colonization, but I think he kind of seems to stick by it. He says it's important to raise the issue of controlled and well-managed immigration that supports economic growth. We haven't had that under the Tory government in the final years, nor really under Labour, though that figure could fall to net zero, the net migration figure this year. So it looks like we're going towards that. And again, as ever, these rows about immigration, I've been seeing them over the past 30 years or so covering politics, they do go down to language. So Keir Starmer, Tom, they said last May, didn't he, nations depend on rules, fair rules. Without them, we risk becoming an island of strangers, not a nation that walked forward together. That island of strangers language came from an Enoch Powell speech. He later resigned from saying that. We asked Number 10 again about that this morning. Again, he says he resigned from that. At the time, he said he hadn't held the speech up to the light to check some of the language. But it's always about how far you go towards it. But as things stand in the past hour, Nigel Farage says he supports everything that Jim Ratcliffe said.
Wow. OK, Christopher Hope, thanks indeed for bringing all of that to us.
We want to bring you some breaking news just coming into the newsroom right now. A $10 billion defamation lawsuit has been brought against the BBC by US President Donald Trump, and a trial has been set for February of 2027. That's the orders of a Florida judge.
So just to repeat that, a $10 billion defamation lawsuit is now brought against the BBC by Donald Trump, and it's set for trial in February 2027 in Florida. Now, of course, we're going to bring you more on that breaking news as we have it throughout the course of the afternoon.
I will say, just on the Reuters news agency in the last few seconds, that's US District Judge Roy Altman has denied the British broadcaster's application to stay the merits-based discovery phase, which, when both sides can obtain evidence from other parties in the lawsuit, that's according to those documents. So these are developments, and obviously very complex language there. We're going to work to understand that a bit more and bring you the latest on it throughout the programme.
But back to our top story now. Sir Jim Ratcliffe has indeed apologised for his comments, saying that Britain had been colonised by immigrants. Let's discuss this in the studio with political commentator Simon Nash. Simon, was he right to apologise?
I think he was right to apologise. I think previously, I've got to say, I do feel kind of sorry for him. Probably the only billionaire not to get caught up in the Epstein files, and now he's caught up in this. And I think it might be a typical example of, like, selective patriotism, perhaps. You know, he apparently is registered in Monaco for tax rather than Great Britain or the UK. And his lovely SUVs, the Ineos Grenadier, is manufactured in France instead of Britain, which makes it a competitor to the British-made Land Rover. So I think it's a shame that he's not fully patriotic. I think I admire the man a lot. He's had a lot of success, but I think he was wrong to talk about colonisation in this way. I think that that creates racial division, and I think the reality is the UK has stayed British. It's predominantly Christian. Parliament is predominantly Christian, and I think that to say that we're being colonised is a massive exaggeration.
We have to say, though, wherever you stand on immigration, whether it's good, bad, whatever that may be, you can't argue that colonisation in a sense hasn't occurred, because, as we've said throughout this programme, you know, you have areas that there are certain cultures that have kind of gathered together, like Chinatowns, as Tom mentions, like Curry Miles, all those kind of places, where they have changed the dynamic of those particular towns and cities. They have brought their way of life. And, you know, you could argue that that's what Sir Jim was referring to, and that's perhaps why he's now apologised for that particular, using that particular word of colonisation. But you can't argue, can you really, that those changes have been made?
Well, it's interesting. The Curry Mile area, Brick Lane in London, that has one of the most important religious buildings ever. It was a Jewish synagogue, and then it was a Christian Catholic church, and now it's a mosque. And that area has lots of fluid immigration, and that's one of the only places that does have the London Underground signs in another language. That's been the case since the 50s, and those people were actually from British colonies who came over. So we kind of colonised them, and then they kind of came over here in small numbers. I think these small pockets of different cultures are probably good for the UK overall. They're not going to become the majority. And from food to culture, I think it makes things more interesting. I think freedom of religion is very important in the UK. We've had civil wars over whether you should be Protestant or Catholic, and allowing occasional mosques and, you know, people of different faiths to practice their religion and culture, I think is a really positive thing.
But therein lies the important distinctor. Occasional. And it's about scale with all of these things. I don't think anyone is seriously suggesting there should have been zero immigration from 1945 until today, but very clearly, looking at the scope and scale of immigration that has increased from the tens of thousands, as it was up until the 1990s, getting into the hundreds of thousands, in some years, gross, into the 7 figures, more than 1 million people a year coming in, gross. At least in 1 or 2 years of the last decade. I mean, this is just an extraordinary scale of change, the like of which this country has never seen before.
Well, that's true, but I wouldn't say it's colonisation, and that's gross, not net. A lot of people leave the UK to British people who are colonising the French chateaux, the strips in Greece and other countries for the British bars. So it's kind of a two-way street, and therefore not colonisation, I would say. I think people kind of want to have their cake and eat it, or rather their food and eat it. I mean, if people really don't want immigration, we'll stop using online taxi apps, stop using food delivery services, because these are the people employing recent migrants. We also have a school leaving age, now 18 rather than 16. Well, maybe we should let younger people at 16 leave school as they could historically and work, and that would negate the need for cheaper labour.
We also have 8 million people unemployed, which or on some form of out-of-work benefit, which is what Sir Jim Ratcliffe was referring to in his... Because I mean, does it make economic sense to have the taxpayer supporting 8 million people on various forms of out-of-work benefits when we have such sky-high migration? I mean, surely we can use some of these people that aren't doing anything.
Well, I'd completely agree with that, and it's arguably the case that those 8 million people out of employed are being subsidised by recent migrants who tend to work very hard. So I think that's an issue that should be dealt with as well. You had a previous commentator saying, well, you know, anxiety is a new back pain, or maybe people need to cut down on the coffee and Red Bull and, you know, get to work. And that would be... Jim Ratcliffe was wrong to use the word colonisation, and unfortunately racial division, racial violence has unfortunately gone up. I've got friends of different faiths and different races. Generation 2 tends to be completely British, and yeah, they don't look white, and that's absolutely fine. This idea that people are coming here and then their children are then a completely different culture, and their children's children are a completely different culture and ghettoised, that's just not happening. You know, people born here from foreign parents, they're just like normal British people like any of us, and therefore the term colonisation isn't the case. With other colonisation, it's a complete change of culture, a complete change of religion, a complete change of legal structures, as with the British Empire. I guess English law was a benefit to colonisation to these countries. So he was wrong to use the term colonisation, and it is a shame to see the division and almost people thinking, if you're being literally invaded, that's almost like a permission to use sort of violence or, you know, other things like that. And so if you're saying, oh, we're being colonised, I don't think it's useful for people to then go, well, if that's literally the case, I can use violence against different people, and often mistakenly mixing people up who are recent migrants with illegal migrants and putting them all together. I think if people are worried about the decline of Christianity here in the UK as opposed to Islam, people should go to their local church and support their own local culture. I think more and more people are atheists, not involved in their local communities, whereas recent migrants are very community-based, and that's a positive thing. So, you know, if you're worried about Muslim immigration, support your local church and your local community, and also embrace different cultures and befriend them, and you'll be surprised what you might learn.
Political commentator Simon Nash, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. This is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Lots more coming up on today's show.
Yes, explosive claims from inside the government that the Prime Minister went into office without a clear plan as former allies lift the lid on how it's all gone so wrong.
And the breaking news that Donald Trump has sued the BBC for $10 billion with a trial date set in Florida for February of 2027. We'll have all the details.
All that and so much more to come. You're with GB News, Britain's #1 news channel.
Bold.
They are under no illusion.
Ray, are you a human trafficker? Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get us on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What I'm going to do now, they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 25 minutes past 2, so let's return to that breaking news this hour. A $10 billion defamation lawsuit has been brought against the BBC by the United States President Donald Trump.
Indeed, and a trial has been set for February of 2027. That's an order from a judge in Florida.
Well, Panorama faced criticism last year over an episode in 2024 for giving the impression Mr. Trump had encouraged his supporters to storm the Capitol building back in January 2021.
In the episode, a clip from Mr. Trump's speech on January 6th that year was spliced to show him saying the following, quote, "We're going to walk down to the Capitol and I'll be there with you and we'll fight. We fight like hell."
But of course, when he actually said we'll fight like hell, it was nowhere near where he said we're going to walk down to the Capitol. The BBC has, of course, previously apologised for this deceptive edit in this Panorama documentary. But now the President of the United States is bringing a $10 billion lawsuit against the BBC. I mean, this is serious money.
Of course, he's alleging that the BBC has defamed him, as well as violating a Floridian law that bars deceptive and unfair trade practices. Now, initially, he was seeking at least $5 billion in damages for each of the lawsuit's 2 counts. So that, in total, equates to the $10 billion that we're now hearing. So that, just to reiterate, has been set now for February of 2027, so in a year's time.
Now, the last year we have data for the BBC's total group revenue was 2024-25, that financial year. Their total revenue of the BBC for that year, most recent on record, was £5.9 billion. So what Donald Trump is actually asking for is a little under double the total revenue of the BBC. Almost 2 years of the BBC doing nothing, producing no content, not doing anything with its money other than giving it to the American president.
Essentially what you think he realistically is asking for is the end of the BBC. I don't think that that's a stretch to be saying that, is that if he's going to take, as you rightly say, double their year's revenue in one fell swoop, well, that doesn't really look good for the national broadcaster now, does it? So, yeah, absolutely. Just to reiterate the breaking news from this hour, a US judge has rejected the BBC's application to stay that $10 billion lawsuit brought about by the US President Donald Trump over that panorama which edited some of his speech. And that judge has now ordered for a court case to take place in February of next year.
So that means the BBC will be going to trial in Florida in just around a year's time. It's going to be quite the case, and of course they allow cameras into American courtrooms, so we'll be able to follow this one very closely indeed. The BBC has put up a strident defence up until now, however, saying that there isn't evidence that the president was harmed by this particular documentary. Indeed, the president would have to prove that this particular documentary had been viewed in Florida at the time that it was published in order to have harmed the President of the United States ahead of the last election, which, of course, he did win in Florida and across the rest of the United States of America. So perhaps this is going to be an uphill battle for Trump to actually convince a court that he was harmed by this documentary, which wasn't broadcast in the United States during an election in the United States, which he won. But perhaps, given that he is President of the United States, an incredibly powerful and influential man with all the best lawyers in the land, perhaps he will be able to mount that case.
Well, it's a tricky one, as you say, isn't it? Because the evidence in terms of it being done has been proved. We've seen that panorama did, in fact, splice those two bits together. So that isn't in dispute. But as you rightly say, it has to be proved that it in some way harmed the US president. And that is going to be the crux of the issue. And I'm sure the prosecutors and the defence, or whatever the terms are in the US. My US judicial system is not on top form. But those two teams will be working very hard to either prove it or to prove that it was not the case. But as you say, Tom, hopefully we'll be getting a live picture from that. In a year's time, we'll be talking about this again and we'll get it live from the courtroom. It'll be very, very interesting to see how that goes. I'm sure a lot of nervousness over at the BBC today.
Huge amount of nervousness. And there will be pressure on the BBC to settle, to make sure that this doesn't go to court, to ahead of the court date actually settle. Will they do that? Well, let's speak to the former BBC executive producer, David Elstein. David, thanks for joining us on this breaking news. This is a huge amount of money the BBC is being sued for.
Well, it's the amount is nominal. What he actually might get could be anything from naught upwards, but you just specify an amount. And I guess it's meant to terrify the BBC. Whether it does that or not, I don't know.
You say it's the amount is nominal, but do you think there will be an amount? Do you think that the US president will ultimately come out the victor of this court case?
Well, I think what was just being said is more likely, which is that there'll now be some attempt at settlement. the reason why today's announcement is significant is that the BBC had been hoping against hope that the court would chuck out the suit on the grounds that the programme wasn't broadcast in Florida, and therefore how could President Trump have suffered any damage there, which for many reasons was quite a plausible argument. Unfortunately, doesn't seem to have succeeded, and if the Florida court has accepted the lawsuit, this is the moment of particular danger for the BBC, because what now happens is discovery, where both sides have to hand over to the other all relevant documentation, and that will force the BBC to tell for the very first time, because we just don't know how this happened, who made the decisions to edit the Trump speech in the way that it was, who approved the program for transmission, when the higher-ups in the BBC knew about it, what they did about it, what were the internal processes, what emails were exchanged, what reports were made, and how come it happened twice, once on Newsnight and once on Panorama. So all those declarations of information will be very tricky for the BBC to manage, and very illuminating for us in the UK, because we have not been able to extract any of this information from the BBC. Maybe Donald Trump will.
And that will be the fascinating element of this to follow from a news perspective. But David, in your understanding, will the acceptance of this case by the Floridian justice system have been on the basis of any evidence? Will the Trump legal team have found, I don't know, a British American who resides in Florida and votes in Florida, who might have seen this on holiday or might have a VPN and watched it online illicitly? I mean, might they have
take the stand?
Might they have found an individual who's done that?
No, I doubt if that's the case. Now, if the court haven't said why they're rejecting the BBC arguments yet, I assume at some point they will do, or will be required to do so. And in all kinds of ways, it doesn't really matter, other than possibly going towards quantum of damages. But as I say, the significance here is that the suit has been set for trial. And once that clock starts ticking, it's almost irrelevant what will happen in the courts in Florida, because the discovery process is going to show that the BBC made a whole series of decisions which have not been revealed as yet. And that, moreover, when they finally revealed what had happened, which was more than a year after the original broadcast, most commentators assumed that therefore the defamation, a defamation suit in the UK couldn't work, because it would fall outside the statute of limitations of 1 year. But there's an exception to that rule, and the exception is that if the person who committed the defamation showed bad faith, then it will be arguable for Trump's lawyers to say, we now want to sue in the UK. And in the UK, the BBC obviously will be banged to rights. There's no question that it was broadcast. There's no question that people saw it. There's no question that it was damaging, maybe overstating it, but it certainly was. And Trump consistently misrepresents the whole thing, saying that the BBC put words into his mouth. They didn't. They took words out of his mouth.
But indeed, that gave a misleading impression of what he was telling that crowd to do. David Elstein, we're going to have to leave it there. Former BBC executive producer, thanks indeed for joining us on this breaking news. Really appreciate it.
Coming up on the show, even more on that breaking news that a trial date has been set for Donald Trump's $10 billion lawsuit, against the BBC. Plus,
explosive claims from inside the government that the Prime Minister went into office without a clear plan, and indeed focusing more on what people wore to meetings than what they said in those meetings. This as former allies lift the lid on how it's all gone wrong.
All of that and more to come. You're with GB News, Britain's #1 news channel.
Hello, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Cold air sitting across the north. Another wet day for many, but some bright spells across parts of the south where it is, at least for the time being, still relatively mild. Low pressure systems sitting across the UK, generating quite a bit of rain, and increasingly as the cold air moves in, we'll see a bit more snow coming in. Some brighter skies over northern Scotland, some snow showers in Shetland. Further south, we've got some rain showers. Some brighter spells now developing over southwest England and South Wales, but most areas cloudy with further rain and drizzle and some hill snow over parts of central and southern Scotland. Temperatures really struggling in parts of the east with that brisk wind coming in from the North Sea. And as that colder air moves in, we will see more and more of the rain turning to snow. Some snow flurries likely across northeastern parts of Scotland. Could well turn icy as temperatures drop through the night as well. Of course, southern Scotland, northern England, we'll see over the hills more and more snow coming in here. Higher routes likely to be affected as we go through the night and into tomorrow. Further south, more of a mishmash with rain showers and some clearer spells. But as I say, as we go through the night, a bit concerned about parts of the North Pennines, particularly to the east, where we'll see the snow really building up in some areas. Again, particularly over the hills. We could see some even down to lower levels for a time as the whole wet weather sinks south over northern England, even into parts of North Wales. Some hill snow likely here. And things turning colder and colder with a widespread frost across Scotland. That could lead to some icy conditions wherever we've seen any showers around. Friday is then a real mishmash with rain, sleet, snow over northern England and North Wales, moving down into the Midlands. Something a bit brighter in the south initially, but then more showers. A bright, fine day for a good part of Scotland and Northern Ireland, although it could be icy first thing. And temperatures only 3 or 4 degrees, still a little milder in the far south.
Thank you to our global community for watching and listening to GB News. We're not only the #1 news channel in Britain, we're chosen by you around the world.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. On the A9 northbound near Broome of Dalrioch, a broken down vehicle is causing restrictions. In Rotherham, the M1 northbound entry slip at junction 31 has a broken down vehicle with one lane closed. Normal conditions are expected between 2:30 and 2:45 this afternoon. In Lincolnshire, the A46 southbound between the A57 and the A1434 has a road traffic collision. All lanes shut, clearing between 4:15 and 4:30 this afternoon. And on the trains, Northern and TransPennine Express report major disruption between Manchester Piccadilly and Manchester Airport. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 39 minutes past 2, and senior figures inside the government are delivering a brutal verdict on power has been exercised, or at least attempted to be exercised, at the very top of government.
They claim mistakes made long before entering Downing Street left the PM without a clear direction once in office, and say the consequences are now playing out.
Well, joining us now is the man in the know, a political editor of The Spectator, Tim Shipman. Tim, thanks indeed for being with us today. Your piece is just extraordinary, laying out, frankly, what an empty vessel our Prime Minister is. Can you give us some of the highlights?
Yeah, I mean, I think in essence, Tom, we've sort of known this, but I made the sort of decision to do a big read on what's really been going on for the last 18 months. We've had a lot of fast-moving events with a lot of people departing from Number 10, and I just thought, let's just cast our minds back and see how we got in this mess. And actually, people have been pretty frank. Some of them still serving, some of them not still serving. But every single quote in this piece is from someone either at the top of the government or a senior figure in the Labour Party. And this is what they think of him. And we sort of knew that he cocked up at the beginning by hiring Sue Gray to be his chief of staff and had to fire her after 90 days. It was only then that McSweeney came in. But by that stage, they, come in with no plan at all. You look at the success that Donald Trump had in his second term, where he walked through the door with 300 executive orders pre-signed, and really, Labour promised change and had no plan whatsoever to deliver it. But the most eye-opening stuff in this piece, I think, is about the Prime Minister himself. Ministers say he doesn't particularly read. He's got no hinterland. He's not really got an interest in politics. We kind of know that. He thinks it's all a bit sordid and dirty, all this sort of political game. But the interesting thing is he doesn't really seem to have an interest in policy either. We know he's passionate about human rights and the law and that sort of thing, but outside of that, he's got no real thoughts in his head about the economy, about the public services. And people say, that in meetings he basically agrees with whatever's put in front of him. He appears to be more concerned about what people are wearing. Memos literally go around the night before saying we must be in smart casual, and Starmer himself apparently turns up in a lot of Paul Smith, I'm told. There are they're polo shirts and jackets, and it does seem to me like this is a pretty sort of beige chino government. Really, it's all fairly bland, and Starmer's absolutely at the heart of it. Civil servants say they got used in Number 10 to Rishi Sunak charging around the building, and Rishi Sunak had his faults. He wasn't particularly adept at politics either, but he did care about the detail. He did care about policy. He was constantly going up to the policy team and going, well, what's happening with this? What's happening with that? Why don't we think about this? Why don't we think about that? Starmer never does this. They say they barely hear from him from Friday lunchtime through to Monday morning. Ministers and people in Number 10 say, we never get like a 7 a.m. email or call on a Monday morning saying, look, I've been thinking about this over the weekend. This is what I'm passionate about. Let's go and do it. And even Boris Johnson used to do that, who was not, the hardest working Prime Minister we've ever had. Even he would be fired by the sort of passion of some thought he'd had and try and get his team in action on it. And there's none of that from Starmer. He doesn't seem to understand that politics is not just about sort of sitting there and being calm and sensible. And this is what someone said, he thinks he's going to be a grown-up, sit in the room, say yes or no to things, invariably yes, because clearly sensible aides and officials line things up that they think he'll approve. And his job is not to be the sort of grand prognosticator, the seller of an idea or a mission or a journey to the British public. And as a result of that, he has been pushed around by his party. And, what this piece recounts really are three kind of great big breaches. The first was with the electorate, who wanted change and instead got more miserablism about the economy right at the beginning, sort of missteps on winter fuel and that kind of thing.
Tim, really sorry to interrupt. All of this, I'm sure, is included in the piece, but I just wanted to ask, just last week, just to play devil's advocate, Sir Keir Starmer said that he was committed to this country, that he would not walk away from this country. I just think we need to, again, just to play devil's advocate, do we need to give him a bigger chance? You say that he's lost the authority, but some of his backbenchers are still loyal. Several of his cabinet are still backing him up. How do we know that he's lost authority? Just what evidence have we got that he's lost authority?
Well, the evidence is, bluntly, that a lot of people who have worked for him and work for him still think he's hopeless. And if you ask most cabinet ministers in private, they will make a rational argument about whether or not now is the right time to get rid of Keir Starmer, and there's plenty of evidence that what follows may be more left-wing or worse. But I think they've mostly drawn their conclusions about the man himself. Now, he's going around, as you rightly say, being fired up, saying, I'm going to fight, I'm not going to walk away, you'll have to drag me out. But Boris Johnson said all that in the months before he was removed. And we heard the same from Theresa May and Margaret Thatcher, days, weeks or months before they were
Even
removed.
Liz Truss said, I'm a fighter, not a quitter.
Oh, she did, absolutely, channeling Peter Mandelson, who's now brought all this, to a head. Look, are there leadership candidates who don't think now is the right time? Wes Streeting, I don't think, thinks now is the right time. Angela Rayner still hasn't been cleared by the tax authorities. They're the two main contenders. They're probably going to have a tricky result in the upcoming by-election. We've got the May elections, which could be a total disaster for May. Now, it may be that Keir Starmer can survive this, but I think what this piece shows is that even if he does survive, he's unlikely to surprise us with some new dynamic plan for Britain. What's almost certainly going to happen is, ever since the Welfare Rebellion, the left of the Labour Party has captured the government, and really all his cheerleading is going to do is going to put up in lights a prospectus for Britain that has not won a general election since 1974.
It's a really fascinating observation, and it is a must-read piece. Tim Shipman, thanks indeed for joining us here live on GB News, political editor of The Spectator, that is.
Well, in relation to the Mandelson scandal, the Prime Minister said he misled officials about his links to Epstein, has referred material to the police and is pursuing legislative and disciplinary steps to limit his remaining titles and roles.
And again, the Prime Minister has repeatedly said that he's committed to the country and public service. The Cabinet say they're in full support of their leader.
We also have some breaking news now. Nursery paedophile Vincent Chan has been jailed for 18 years at Wood Green Crown Court for the wicked sexual abuse of young children.
Well, we'll have more on that for you throughout the day here on GB News, that the nursery paedophile Vincent Chan jailed for 18 years.
This is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Lots more still to come on today's show.
Patrick Christie's is in the ground on East Durham, or indeed on the ground in East Durham, hearing from the locals about crime, jobs and whether promises of regeneration could possibly deliver.
But first, if you're in some search of some holiday sun, here's the forecast for some top European holiday destinations.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries, all sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Whilst it's perhaps not as unsettled as it was this time last week across much of southern Europe, there's heavy rain, there's strong winds to watch out for. Lots of wet weather across Spain and Portugal through tomorrow, and across southern parts of France. Some hill snow mixed in with this. Tomorrow actually looks largely dry across much of Italy, but that wet weather will feed its way eastwards, and currently across Greece and Cyprus there's heavy thundery rain around, and some of that will continue as we go into the weekend. Elsewhere, some dry weather for many.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk
No,
now?
that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up? About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates,
lively conversation,
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
and each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce,
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's just gone 10 to 3, and let's cross over to East Durham, where the one and only Patrick Christie's is speaking to people about the economic deprivation in the area. Patrick, take it away.
Yes, well, I am here at the wonderful Shane Brown Hair here in East Durham, and one of the things that we want to talk to people about is how difficult it is to run a small business in this current climate. And so joining us now is Alison, who's the co-owner here at Shane Brown Hair. How are you?
Hi, I'm good, thank you.
Thank you for letting us barge in. And I'll just say we've slightly killed the vibe in here because they had music pumping and everything. We've made them turn it off for this. But look, obviously you are doing great work here, but I want to ask you how tough it is at the moment with things like national insurance, business rates, taxes, etc.
Well, I think it's obviously impacted a lot of small businesses, the things that's happened in the country recently, especially with national insurances. Small businesses like ours are finding it difficult to employ people now. Hairdressers, barbers are having to go down the self-employed route where they are having to rent chairs from salons, which is a really shame. You know, I mean, it's good for obviously some of the employers, but at the same time, because national insurance has gone so high, pensions, taxes, it's very difficult to maybe take on an apprentice and keep them on now once you've sort of trained them. Because of the small business, we're not getting any help at all from the government. You know, everything just comes out of your business takings, you know.
Yeah. And that's the point, that some of the larger corporations, I suppose, can absorb a bit of that cost, but it is these small businesses that are being clobbered. And it's not just the things like you said about tax, also things like energy bills.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, energy bills, especially in the winter time, for us, we use sort of gas and electric in here. Even just mobile gas bottles, they can, you know, last us around about 10 days and can cost over £40.
There is actually one there. I don't know if we might be able to get that in. Sorry, but there is actually one just down there, isn't there? So that's costing you a lot of money.
Oh yeah, £42 for a bottle of that, and that literally lasts us 10 days. So if you worked it out on a monthly basis, and then the price of electric's gone up also as well, hair dryers and things like that on water rates. So everything's just really risen in cost.
I mean, they did obviously tell you that they were going to bring your bills down, didn't they? Do you feel a bit let down?
That hasn't happened with our government at the moment, has it? Yeah, you definitely feel let down for small businesses. It's sad because you do see some local ones closing, which is, you know, really sad, awful. But, you know, we try our best. We kept really busy here, so we're lucky. It's just has an impact on you have to rise your prices to stay in line.
Absolutely. Well, so we are going to have a longer chat with you in a second because I'm doing my show live 9 to 11 p.m. from this area. So we're going to get into the weeds of what's really affecting local people. But back to you now in the studio.
We'll tune in later on. Patrick, thank you for being there for us. Of course, everything that GB News is and does. This has been Good Afternoon Britain.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't go anywhere, though, because the lovely Martin's up next.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good afternoon. Things turning colder for all of us over the next 24 hours. And as the colder air moves in, the rain will increasingly turn to snow, mostly over hills. Things could also turn a little icy over parts of the north as the temperatures drop. A wet end to the day for southern Scotland and northern England. In this zone, as I said, the rain turning more and more to snow through the night. Some snow showers in northern Scotland where it's going to be frosty and icy. It's all about the rain in the south. Further rain showers coming in here as temperatures hold up above freezing. But further north, there will be some frost, certainly over northern Scotland. Quite a hard frost, and as I said, the risk of ice here. Continued threat of some snow then over northern England, especially through the night and into Friday morning. There'll be a sprinkling of wintry showers over northern Scotland, which may make things icy, but much of Scotland actually waking up to some sunshine on Friday. It should turn brighter across Northern Ireland, perhaps a bit of a grey start. Then this zone over northern England and North Wales, where there'll be a messy mix of rain, sleet and some snow, whereas in the south it's mostly further rain that we will see. But some of these higher routes, fairly unpleasant first thing in the morning with the snow continuing to fall over the hills, and it could for a time even come down to lower levels over northern England, North Wales, perhaps even a little bit over the Midlands as we go through the day. Turning brighter in southern Scotland and Northern Ireland with some sunshine, some sunny spells in the south at first, but then some heavy showers likely, particularly in southwest England for the afternoon. Again, potentially causing a little bit of disruption. 7 to 9 Celsius here, but elsewhere a lot colder than that. And look at this, much colder for Saturday. Widespread frost again. It could be icy, bar a few showers in the far north and along the east coast. It's a sunny day on Saturday, dry and sunny. We'll cloud over a little bit from the west as we go through the day, with more rain set to move in. And as that comes in on Saturday night, it could generate a bit of snow. But ahead of that, as I said, most places looking dry and bright, but chilly on Saturday.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
We want you to boost your bank account with an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. There's also a terrific £10,000 to spend on a Riviera travel holiday of a lifetime for two. So whether you fancy a cruise or an escorted tour, you'll have over 30 worldwide destinations to choose from.
For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access